Hello and welcome back to Spawn Trap's Hit Pause MCU, the podcast that can do this all day. I am Till, and I am joined by the easiest person to introduce, Matt.
Why?
It's literally
I don't know
Howie.
why I'm the easiest person to introduce,
That's
but
what you said to
maybe
me.
it's because.
So I just used it. You haven't been on a podcast since the first one,
it was either, or it depends when the first one came out.
7 months ago.
Because
I just looked.
and I also did the E3 React
Oh
stuff
yeah,
as
you've been
well.
on gaming stuff, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just the MC one. Yeah, super busy, personal life, university.
all good. I mean, I think the last podcast I was on, so I was with Jordan, which was recently. So this is actually a short gap in between. But I just figured, like, I had a free moment. That's how we work. Is if we have a free moment that kind of lines up, then we will try to schedule a podcast. So I just hit you up and like, hey, do you want to do one? Because I haven't done one with you in a long time, and I figured if we're both available, let's do one. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and what we've been podcasting together on and off for what, years now. Um,
Has
so
been
it's
well.
always good to
Spawn
get
Traps.
together.
Spawn Traps been. We started around Summer Game Fest E3, which is pretty soon, like the new one. So
Mm.
we've almost been around for a year. So it's only been 1 year.
Yeah, well, like me and you
Oh,
personally,
personally,
we've been,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, like we've been podcasting together for
I
years.
try to
So
forget that time.
we
Horrible people, I want to forget.
were super successful.
Yes, yes. It took off, and then we just abandoned it. Um, But yeah, so I mean, the podcast we did. So the last podcast I was on, the one before that, there was a huge gap in between those two episodes, because I
Mm.
was in the we were in the same situation where we just couldn't. We tried like every week or so, like we tried to figure out a time that would work, and it just wouldn't work. So I mean, we're not a weekly podcast. We're not like we don't have a set schedule, just whenever we can put this stuff out, which is really tough because there's just been, ever since last year, just a steady stream of Marvel content that we just want to talk about, and it's tough because by the time we catch up, when there's a new show like Moon Knight, it's just everything's already done, and we're 4 episodes into Moon Knight now as of recording this episode. I don't even know. Have you watched the whole thing?
Oh yeah, yeah, man. I've been like sitting there refreshing Disney Plus at the scheduled release time, just wanting to watch it. It is like, I knew next to nothing about Moon Knight
hmm
except for the memes of the Moon
Oh
Knight
yeah,
comics.
where he's
Yeah,
walking down the stairs and
Dracula's trying to get his money,
yeah.
and but no, it's really good. I love it. It's probably I'm probably gonna say probably my second favorite Disney Plus series at the moment for Marvel.
We will get into what we think about Disney Plus. I want this to be sort of like a little reflection podcast because Matt has been on here for a while, so I want to know his thoughts on a lot of stuff that we've already talked about and brought up before. But I want to remind everyone this is a spoiler podcast. We will be talking about spoilery things, so hopefully you're caught up with us. If not, I have timestamps down in the description below. This is a YouTube exclusive podcast, so hopefully you're watching our faces right now, and then you can skip to whatever you want to hear us talk about. If there's some sort of section you haven't seen and you don't want spoilers for it, but this is just fair warning right now. In general, the podcast is going to be a spoiler podcast. Um,
We're even gonna spoil stuff that's gonna happen 20 years in the future. So
I mean, I could. I know where I have a good idea where the MCU is going. I've
yeah,
been thinking about that. Like there's obvious stuff that they're that they're like building towards, and I see like nobody talking about it, and I'm like, this is obviously where they're heading, but I don't want to say anything. So oh, I
yeah,
see that robot.
yeah. You know me. I'm not much into the comic books themselves because I'm really far behind, and
Me too.
two, that it'd be really expensive to like catch up and read everything. So all my theories come from things I've gleaned on the internet from Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how I will say this. Even like avid comic readers get pretty much get
Mm.
their information that way too. I mean, I get a lot of my information that way. Um, but I don't think it's this day and age an expensive endeavor to get into comics because there is like I was just telling my brother today. I don't know if it's the same case in Australia, but in Canada here we have Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, and part of that right now, like for this month, you can claim a 3-month offer for Marvel Unlimited, which is their digital comics subscription. Um,
Yeah, I think I did see that offer come through on my emails. I just don't have the Xbox Game Pass at the moment.
Yeah. So I mean, like let's say you're a new subscriber to Game Pass, you never had it before. Again, I don't know what the situation is there. It's like $1 for 1 month for like the first sign up, so you can just like use the dollar to get the Marvel Unlimited. That's just an example. There's other options out there too. I used to recommend Comixology ever since Amazon bought them out and screwed up over everything. I don't know if I would still recommend Comixology. But yeah, so that's interesting. Like, you don't read comics at all, or
No, I've got a few comics in my cupboard. I usually what's it called, the free comic book day or whatever.
yeah, which is coming
I'll
up.
usually
It's like a
yeah
couple weeks or next week or a couple weeks. Yeah.
yeah. So I usually grab a couple here and there, and then like I've read I've read about 50% of Civil War, but that's Civil War the all the
The
tie-ins as well.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So
I was gonna
so
say
like
the main
She-Hulk,
comic or all the tie-ins.
yeah, all the
Even
tie-ins.
I haven't
Yeah,
read all the tie-ins.
yeah. I kind of gave up after reading She-Hulk for a bit. What wasn't particularly enjoyable.
Yeah,
Game.
I mean that's what you kind of pick and choose. Like this is kind of like a tangent, but I think it's like a good way to talk about getting into comics. I was reading more like the team based stuff. I mean, I was reading Spider Man because I that's my favorite character. I was reading the team based stuff like the Avengers, and then I'm introduced to it was New Avengers is what I was reading. I was introduced to characters that I didn't know about, or it's like my first time reading about them or getting to know more knowledge about them, and I kind of just like spun off from there. It's like, oh, this character's in this comic now, doing their own thing or with a new team. So, that kind of helped introduce like what kind of characters I like, and spin off from comics from there. So that's a good way to do that. I don't know if I've ever read any She-Hulk comics. I've read some Hulk comics, so She-Hulk will be interesting. I've read some team stuff that she's in, but not any solo stuff.
Yeah, like, and nothing against the character of She-Hulk, obviously, because I haven't read any of her other series runs, but just that particular her particular stuff in Civil War was quite slow because obviously she was like the lawyer and it was all,
I was gonna ask, what was
the
she doing?
Senate. She was the
Yeah,
Senate, so um, no. But other than that, no. Like I've read comics and I've got plans to um get some omnibuses.
yeah,
So like the Deadpool ones and stuff like that. I'm just waiting until I get a place where I can put my own
yeah.
shelves in.
The
So,
storage is the thing, right? You gotta have
ooh,
the storage for it. That's why I like. I was starting to get into digital comics. Actually, I guess I prefer, or I've mostly read digital. It's like whatever comics I really like, I do the same thing. I get the big trades or the hardcovers or omnibuses, because I want to reread them and just always read them. So, um, if I recall, because I didn't know what She-Hulk was doing in Civil War, I don't remember. If I recall, Matt Murdock, the other superhero lawyer, had his identity revealed, and he was on the run after the Sokovia Accords because he refused to sign. I don't know if you remember that.
I
Not
know
the Sokovia
Spider Man.
Accords. I'm crossing
The
the movies and everything.
Yeah,
The
yeah, the whatever the
Superhuman
bill was.
Registration Act. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Spider Man revealed his identity,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't get that that far. into the series. Like by the time you read all the tie-ins,
Hmm.
you know,
It's a
you've gone
slow
through
read.
like two
Yeah.
issues of Civil War. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Um, but yeah, we're gonna be talking about some Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, and the big thing that just happened was a trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder, which I guess is what we're gonna start off with in our visual context rectangle. Let me make sure I don't have copyright
Nice.
music. um, so yeah, what'd you think of the trailer?
I, you know, brilliant. It's got the vibe of Ragnarok,
Yes.
but it feels like a progression as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like Taika's not going for the same thing. He's going for something familiar, but building upon. And also, it's awesome because Thor's going to be the fourth movie, fourth solo movie at it in the MCU. So
Yeah. Uh, that is true. This feels like a sequel though, like a second movie. You know, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's like, and it's 100% a sequel, right?
Yeah.
And it feels. I know it, especially with the part with the Guardians of the Galaxy in the shots and that. It
Hmm.
feels like a really good continuation.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I I'm not a huge like fan of the character of Thor, at least in like the
Hmm.
comics and all this other stuff. I will say like Ragnarok definitely turned that around.
Oh,
Um, and I think I'm the most hyped for this movie out of anything. Like I can't wait to see uh everything in this movie. We haven't even seen the villain yet, which
oh
is
yeah. I mean, there's some leaked artwork
yeah,
because of like
toys.
selling action figures and stuff like that. Um, and it's an interesting look. But you talk about hype, and I keep thinking like I can't get more hyped for this movie. But then the trailer drops for the next movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, No Way Home, right?
Yes,
Couldn't get
yeah.
more hyped. Even though I had a couple of spoilers, I was still
I had
hyped.
so many
Um,
spoilers. The movie is all
and
spoiled for
then
me.
and then like the egg credit scene was the Doctor Strange trailer. I'm like, well, there goes me hype again. Thinking I can't get any more hyped, and then the
Yeah.
Thor trailer drops.
Uh, well, I'd say like No Way Home was hype for me because, like I said, Spider Man is a favorite character. I love
Mm,
the first two movies that they did, and
yeah.
um, I don't know. There was a lot there, but it did seem like this is going to be a fan service movie,
Mm,
which it was. And I didn't.
mm,
Not that that's a bad thing, or that that's not what I wanted or anything. But it's like I knew what kind of movie I was getting. Um, so yeah, I don't know if like this trailer came out at the same time as No Way Home. I don't know, man. Like I feel like I'd still be more hyped for this movie, just because. I'll be honest, Ragnarok I think is a better movie than the other two Spider Man.
yeah.
And
Well, so the funny thing, I've actually got a funny story about Ragnarok
mhm,
because after the first two Thor movies, I was not interested whatsoever about watching the third Thor film.
yeah,
Didn't watch a single trailer. None of that jazz. And I was just sitting at home bored one night, and I was like, I'll just go and check this Thor movie out.
yeah,
And oh mate, I tell you what, going in completely blind, no idea what I hadn't even seen um What We Do in the Shadows, which was one of Taika's first
mhm,
films. I hadn't even seen that at that point, so I had no idea who this director was.
mhm.
And going in completely blind, it was unreal, and it really really fixed the issues around Thor
I
because
so
in the previous in the previous two movies, he was like very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
His whole character was, I'm a god of
Mhm.
thunder, rescue the damsel in distress, that type of thing.
Yeah. It was definitely a much needed change for the character. What I want to ask then, if you went in completely blind to the movie, so you didn't see the trailer at all before the movie.
No.
So you did not, did you or did you not know that Hulk was going to be in the movie?
I think the only thing of the trailer I did see, I think no, actually, yeah, that's a lie. I actually did see a trailer,
Okay.
but it was the very first original teaser trailer.
Yeah.
You know, the one that was like they ended up completely changing in the movie. You know how they met Hela in the alleyway
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and
But that
and
had
they
the Hulk in
completely
it, right?
changed. No, no.
Oh, I remember the
I
Hulk being in there.
I think that might have been the trailer or maybe the next trailer, but yeah, no,
Mhm.
I had no idea the Hulk was in it. So
Okay, so what was that
it,
reveal like? Because I always wondered, because that's sort of like the Terminator 2 situation, which I don't know if you've seen Terminator 2. Um,
of course I have, yeah.
okay. Some people have. My brother hasn't watched the Terminator movies yet. Um, so yeah, the I'm gonna spoil Terminator. I'm sorry, it's a really old movie. You should have watched it by now.
Oh,
But yeah, the trailer revealed that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the good guy in that movie, and so that kind of like ruined the reveal in the movie. And I feel like Hulk is the same situation. So I'm just wondering like what that reveal was like when you were watching it, because I had it spoiled for
oh
me.
no, it was completely awesome. Um,
Like you weren't
you
expecting
sitting
it,
there,
right?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, weren't expecting it, and it was like, um, it was basically like when the other Spider-Man showed up in No Way Home, just people cheering and
Yeah.
thinking it's so cool and things like that. Like whenever those little cameos happen.
Um, I remember I get the same vibes in this trailer as the Ragnarok trailers, where it just seems like it's like an 80s metal album cover put into a movie, and it's
Yeah,
got humor and it's got great visuals and colors and great music, and it's just like, well, what more can you ask for? So
yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah.
You know, let's have some fun. Let's have some comedy. But and no, it'll be really interesting to see because from the teaser,
Hmm.
it feels like a lot of stuff from like the you'd see in the first act
Yeah. Oh
or
yeah,
like
yeah. That well
first
that's
half of a movie.
Yeah, that's what Marvel typically does is they show you the early stuff so that the rest of the
Mm.
movie isn't spoiled. Or they change stuff or they flat out lie about stuff, which Ragnarok
Y-
did, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's like, well, how do we know these aren't all just deleted scenes that have already
Yeah.
been edited out of the movie?
Do you think, like, for example, the shot that we just saw where his eye he had the two blue eyes, because we know from like Endgame and stuff he has the different eye. Do you think like that's actually in the movie? Like they're gonna have like a story on how he got his eyes, like his eye fixed?
I feel like unless it's like a plot device, I feel like
Hmm.
whatever his eye is inconsequential.
Okay.
Um, and also, like one of the things about Endgame is I was actually disappointed that they gave him the other eye.
You wanted him to have the eye patch?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reckon it was totally badass look, and especially going on his journey to be like, you know, Odin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. But you know, yeah, I think, yeah, who knows really? I'm
I
not that worried about
I
how he
would
gets his eye back.
I would imagine they got rid of the eye patch because Chris Hemsworth was probably not having it. If I would imagine anything, like he probably wants to not have the eye patch on every time he's acting. um,
Yeah, who knows?
we see a lot of new stuff in this movie, though. The big reveal is Jane Foster's Thor. Um,
Hmm.
which she looks awesome. Um, we
And
see a lot
beefed
of
up a lot too.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. She's definitely looking buff. Um,
Mm.
and we see a lot of the Guardians. We see in this shot here, what looks like everybody's assuming is Olympus. And that right there, the Thunderbolt. People are thinking that's Zeus.
Well,
Um,
that makes sense, right?
yeah. So I always wondered when we're gonna get Hercules in these Marvel movies, and it seems like this might be the movie. So I don't know, maybe we'll see that. Hercules is very like Thor-like character, where they're actually like both always fighting each other all the time, and like they're the good guys, but they're like they have that sort of ego where they always want to spar with each other. Um, so I'm interested in that. We see Valkyrie. What looks like she's making New Asgard sort of like a tourist place where there's like all these attractions and stuff. People visiting New Asgard. It's like a big tourist destination.
Yeah, and it looks like she's sitting in a room with, I don't know, a bunch of either business people or
Mm-hmm.
like the UN or something.
Yeah.
Like, because I know in the comics, in some of the comics, New Asgard wasn't um, welcome in some of the comics.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
some comics, like the Earth, absolutely hated having these, random Asgardians rock up and take pieces of their lands, right?
Yeah. It was set in America, and at that time was um I think before the Secret Invasion, which is also a series that's coming to Disney Plus soon, where Norman Osborn was sort of in charge after the events of Civil War, and he sort of led a siege onto New Asgard, at which he got like he sort of had support for because people were not having this, piece of land being taken over from these aliens, literal aliens. Um, but
Quite the funny real life parallel
I
there.
know,
Something
I
about
know.
colonization.
Yeah, but politics out of comics is what people usually say. It's always been there. You're just blinded by it. Anyways, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of different plot points going on here. But yeah, the trailer didn't even show us the main thing, which is the villain and what the plot is. I think we got a quick glimpse of what Thor's gonna be doing in this movie, which he visits that planet and there's that big like monster looking thing that's dead. Um,
Yeah, so apparently that's a direct shot
mhm.
from the comics.
Yeah,
Like I've seen the comparison photos between that shot and the shot from the
which is
comics,
right
the
here
panel.
coming up.
And yeah, apparently it's almost 1-to-1.
Yeah,
And apparently that creature is a friend of Thor's.
yeah. It's supposed to be a god, I
So
think.
it would make sense
Yeah,
because the bad guy is Gore the God Butcher.
yeah. And we are getting a lot of gods introduced, like newly introduced in the MCU. We're getting the Egyptian gods in Moon Knight. We got the Eternals. Um, we got. I feel like there's one other thing.
We got Arishem
Mm-hmm.
from
That's
Eternals.
a
So
celestial, though.
all the Celestials, they're still gods, right?
I guess so, yeah. Because the Eternals are sort of like a religion. They worship Erisham, yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Uh, yeah, I think unless there's nothing, can't think. So we got the Egyptian pantheon,
mhm.
Norse pantheon, the Greek pantheon. Um, yeah, the Eternals.
Yeah, I feel like there's one that I was missing, but I can't think of it right now. Also, it looks like he's abandoning Stormbreaker,
Dawnbreaker.
so he's not gonna
Yeah,
have an
that's.
axe for the movie.
Oh well, I don't know. I don't know whether it's because we know from Endgame he went through his you know, I guess the depression and the PTSD
Hmm.
phase in that 5 year gap. I just wonder whether he's just because you see some other shots where he's got Stormbreaker.
Yeah.
Um, so I wonder if he's just put the axe down till he like finds himself. You know, he's going on that journey of I'm going to give up fighting. I need to, align myself, which he does say in the trailer.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a semi-retirement than
Not fully leaving it behind.
yeah.
Here's a shot we
But it.
missed. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it does make it interesting to think about how Mjolnir
Hmm.
gets reforged.
Yeah, where you can kind of see the cracks in the hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, here's a shot that I forgot about while we were talking about Valkyrie. Is we see on the right there is Meek in a
Ah, yes.
in
In a
a
suit.
suit
Yep.
and like a robotic robot underneath the suit.
Quite dapper.
We also I feel like we could kind of piece together what like the timeline of this movie because we see much like Spider-Man No Way Home, we see Thor in a whole lot of different outfits in this movie. So like there's this one with like the fur cape. There's
Mm.
I think this one might be the same where he's leaving Stormbreaker behind. Uh he's got like this, I don't know, like thing on. He's got his like workout outfit here.
And then there's the outfit he wears with the Guardians as well, which is like
Or
this one, yeah,
he takes off that coat. Maybe after he leaves Stormbreaker behind, I guess. But yeah, he's got the
this Star Lord.
yeah, sort of Star Lord look. But also, so he's with the Guardians there with like a blue race of aliens. It looks like they're fighting a war because like Star Lord's covered behind a rock. Groot and Rocket are on the left there. Nebula's standing behind. Um,
I saw a theory that they thought that that planet could be like the wastelands of Sakaar after Ragnarok,
mm-hmm.
after like the Grand Master's captured by all the other people there, and it's like the wastelands of Sakaar,
I got you.
which is interesting to think about.
I think Sakaar is in this movie because there are some shots that look definitely like that planet. It's much more
Like the
vibrant
Zeus
and
shot.
colorful. Yeah.
Yeah.
This shot here though, Thor's wearing a completely different outfit. Still has
Yeah.
Stormbreaker. And he's with the Guardians still.
And it
Mantis
looks
is
like the
here.
same planet.
It looks like the same planet. Kraglin, I think his name is, with the Yondu's headpiece, is there too. Um, so I'm wondering if like they're in a fight, and he's like, I can't do this anymore, and then he leaves Stormbreaker up there, and then he changes and
Yeah,
comes back to
like
the
a
battle.
costume change.
Yeah. And then here he is. Well, after, so this is Sakaar, I think, right here, because you got there's this
Korg's
shot.
looking good.
Korg is looking good. So I don't wanna like play back the video because then we'll get copyright strikes. But yeah, we see the Guardians leave, so I think we get like sort of like a time frame of what's happening in this movie. But I think I'm guessing Korg isn't always with him. Like maybe he leaves the Guardians and pairs up with Korg.
Yeah, because like we see Korg in this shot,
Yeah.
Korg in um the dead beast shot on the rock with Thor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think Korg's in it the whole time. I
Yeah.
think there comes a certain point where Thor wants to hang out with his buddy Korg and get some help.
No, this image was circulating around the internet because it seems like an odd shot where there's a huge empty space on the
Ace.
left.
Yeah.
and people are saying that's a spoiler character. A lot of people are assuming that is I can't remember the character's name right now. Um, it's a much wanted Thor character. Uh,
Ares?
no, that would be cool. I would love to see Ares. Um,
Well, Ares was on the tower
oh
in
yeah, he
Sakaar,
was. Yeah, yeah. The other
and
character,
so was Beta Ray Bill.
Beta Ray Bill. Yeah, that's what everybody's assuming is Beta Ray Bill is in here.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. No. That'd be really interesting to have three different Thors.
Yeah, because we have Jean, we have Beta Ray Bill, and then Thor,
Odin's
Thor,
son, so
Odin's son. Yeah, and he's also got this outfit here, which looks awesome.
that looks it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a really shiny blue, gold, and red outfit, and
Yeah,
he's
and
still got Stormbreaker though, so that's
yeah.
what's
I think this shot I think maybe Love and Thunder is gonna have a like a montage opening.
Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's just part because but man, that outfit looks so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. Is that all we got for anything else you want to add to Love and Thunder before we move
No,
on?
just really hyped for it.
Yeah, can't wait. Um, we've been
And
watching Moon Knight. Oh, go ahead.
that's July, isn't it?
That is
July
July
8th.
8th. Yeah, July 8th. We've been watching Moon Knight. You're
Are
all
you all
caught
caught
up.
up?
I am all caught up. Yeah. Episode 4 is where we're right. Episode 4, I think, is where we're
Yep.
on.
2 more episodes to go.
2 more episodes. I thought when I was last watching it, I should actually update my brother because I watched it with my brother. I'm like, yeah, we're halfway through because I thought we were on episode 3, and I'm like, oh shit, this is episode 4. We only got 2 more. So, but yeah, I feel like when I started this podcast, I was hoping we could do weekly because of What If, and those episodes kind of lent themselves to breaking it down by episode and what we thought and everything. I feel like if we would have started when WandaVision happened, it would have been the same thing. Moon Knight, I feel, is that show, but I feel like this point, like this is a good point in the show if we were to just stop and break down and theorize what's happening. This is that episode 4, because things just kind of change and they just like out of nowhere, and your mind's kind of going all over the place and what's happening. But so far, I don't know. What do you think of the show as a whole so far?
I think um, I think it's super interesting. Um, it's got a bit of a bit of Indiana Jones
Mm-hmm.
tomb raiding flavor to it.
Yeah.
It's got mystery to it, and it's also I tend to like it because it's a bit more supernatural,
Yes.
and I love anything supernatural. So, and yeah, I think the villain's very interesting. I'm not sure, like it's episode 4, and I still don't know what the villain's doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
he talks about what he's trying to do,
It's a
but it
very
doesn't.
Minority Report kind of plot line where it's just I want to stop all evil people before they do the evil things, and that's what
Yeah,
his
but
character is.
I feel like he's not. Um, I guess telling the whole truth
Right. Yeah.
because he just seems like one of those types of villains who has this big spiel about what he's trying to do, but he's trying to do something else in the background, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. He has his own secret agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and especially I think, and obviously the comic books are different to real life. The god Emmet isn't the one who judges people in the Egyptian mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just really interesting when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
Um, and but there's also saying, um, obviously, spoiler for episode 4. Like we see a number of gods that have already turned into those little rock miniatures,
Hmm.
and I don't know if they get turned into a rock miniature, what happens with their powers, right?
Well, I think the implication is that whoever the avatar is or that god, they lose their abilities because Mark and Steven didn't have the suit or the abilities after Khonshu got trapped into that um, little statue, right?
But the villain,
Mm-hmm.
he's supposed to be the avatar of Emmett.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true. But he has the
Yes,
staff, right? He doesn't
he
actually
has a
have.
relic.
Yeah. But he doesn't actually possess his own abilities. He has some sort of weapon that he's using.
Yeah, that's true.
Um I will say about the villain in the comics, um they pulled a villain that was in like a small part of one comic early on in the Moon Knight days and hasn't been heard from again. So it was like an odd choice. People are like, "Why'd you choose this villain?" And so it does feel like it's a completely unique new character for the show. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's something the MCU has done as well, like
yep.
through its entire history, is taking these little, not degrade villains
Hmm.
and amalgamated all these different villains into this one character.
Yeah, the villains for Iron Man 3 stand out as for that. But even like just making up their own villains, we've
Mm.
seen in the Defenders that's happened.
Hmm.
I want to say there's an MCU movie where that's or show where that's happened as well, and I can't think of it on the top of my head. Um, I have a feeling Miss Marvel is going to be the same way. I can't imagine most of her, um, notable villains from the comics are going to make their way onto the big screen. I talked about it in the
Mm.
last podcast, Jordan, but her like the most iconic villain I can think of in a Miss Marvel comic is um the DNA of Benjamin Franklin mixing with a pigeon or some sort of bird and creating this evil villain who wants to mind control kids and use them as batteries. And I can't imagine
Oh, that's
them using that
no,
character in the show. So
that's wild.
so yeah, so I have a feeling that's going to be sort of the same thing going forward. For like characters who are like, we don't want to use any of those villains. We have a unique idea for a villain. So I'm kind of glad they did that with Moon Knight.
Mm.
I don't know any of his villains
Yeah,
though.
yeah. I mean, there's the werewolf
Mm-hmm.
guy that Moon Knight fights in the comics.
Yeah.
I don't even know the villain's name, so that's how much I know about it. I know he's a werewolf.
Well,
That's about it.
there is a Halloween special that's coming out this year, set
Mm.
in the
Mm.
MCU, which I don't think has officially been titled, but it's pretty much everybody realizes it's Werewolf by Night, which is
Mm.
the
That's
which
it.
is the
Yeah.
tie-in. Yeah. So some people are thinking that this show might tie into that because that's coming out soon. So
Yeah. I'm with that Halloween special. I'm thinking that it'll be tied in with Moon Knight, but I also feel like we might get a little Blade cameo
maybe, yeah,
in that Werewolf by Night. So,
yeah. We haven't really actually seen any vampires yet. But
well,
but the vampires exist. There's been mentions of them, you know?
depends if you've seen a recent Oscar nominated movie
Oh,
starring Jared Leto.
yeah. Wait, is it really nominated for an Oscar?
No, it just all the hype I see like for it on TikTok is just like it's just blown out of proportion about how great it is, and people are just talking about it making billions of dollars and starting cryptocurrency called Morbius bucks and stuff like
Oh my
that.
god, I haven't got
It's
that
it,
far
it's
into the. fandom.
It's just a massive meme.
Have you seen Morbius?
No,
No. Okay.
no, I got better things to do with my time, like sleep.
I haven't. I just don't want to go to the theaters right now. Um,
Yeah,
otherwise I would have been like opening night seeing it because I realize how bad people are making that see, but I was really hyped for the movie, and I do like the character, so I really want to see it, and I'm invested at this point, whether it's Marvel Universe, Sony, Marvel Universe, I don't care. Um,
yeah. And one of my friends went and saw it, and she said it was good. So I'm just gonna wait till it's like on digital streaming
yeah.
to watch it. I don't want to waste money on it.
What I have heard, what concerns me, like I don't care if the movie's good or bad. Like what I mentioned last week or last podcast is that if there's anything salvageable, especially the character, if Jared Leto did a good job with the character, and I would want to see Morbius and other things, I don't care if the movie's bad, just whatever's
Mm.
salvageable from that
Yep,
universe to build it out. Like even like Venom, Let There Be Carnage, I hated that movie. It was garbage
yep,
for me
yep.
personally. But there's still like there's aspects of that movie which I would like to see like put into Sony's Marvel universe and see how they build that out. Um, but from what I hear, is that movie breaks the MCU, which I'm afraid of.
Yeah. I know a bit when someone talks about Morbius breaking the MCU.
Mm,
I know what they're talking about.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it does sound like it breaks the MCU a bit. From
A,
what I understand of the scenes.
a recent thing I read, I didn't look up the source, so like for this
Mm,
one, I'm not 100% if it's true or not. Um, from what I read is that the director was forbidden from contacting Marvel in like cooperating with them over Morbius and how it connects to the MCU and all that stuff. Which
that's
I have several issues with because first of all, like prior to that, prior to Morbius coming out, I had all the faith in the world because I'm like, you know what, Sony and Marvel have a good relationship. They didn't
yep,
at the start, before there was different leadership, and before the leaked emails and everything. They had sort of a rocky relationship. But I mean, at least Kevin Feige, Amy Pascal had a really good relationship.
mhm,
And from there, that's all you need. And I imagine like at some point they must have talked to each other about Morbius, you know, to make sure that there's something cohesive happening. But
yeah, and you can tell that there was discussions because from the trailer we see the vulture.
yeah, but that's my problem with it is that because we saw from the trailer, I'm like, okay, good. They're talking with each other. This is
Yeah.
whether even though Marvel's got nothing to do with it, they know what's happening. They're discussing this to make sure everything works, right? Because I just felt like that's how that studio relationship was with it because they're benefiting from each other. And they're all fans, right? That at least the people
Mhm.
working on the movies, from what it
Yeah.
seems like. Even Venom: Let There Be Carnage. I hated that movie, but what was the director's name again? Played Alfred, and Golem.
Andy
Andy
Serkis.
Serkis. He was a fan, and he
Mm.
made the movie he wanted to make. It looked like so. I at least had some faith there. But when they're putting Vulture in the movie, and that's not the situation, and they're not talking with Marvel, then it's like maybe you shouldn't put Vulture in the movie if you don't know 100% that that's going to work or not. I don't know.
Yeah, and from what I've read about the movie and with the post and mid credit scenes,
Hmm.
spoilers, that it sounds like they fucking yeah had no idea what Marvel were doing in regards to the multiverse and just threw something together at the last minute.
and that's so disappointing. And um, I'll have to look at like and the contracts changed since the Spider-Man relationship,
Mm,
but I've read through like sort of like the because again leaked emails. read through like what Sony is allowed, not allowed to do with Spider-Man and his characters. I don't know how well that translates to Morbius, if it's the same situation, but at least in the case of Spider-Man, Sony legally has to let Marvel know what they're doing. So Marvel
Yep.
needs to be aware of it. I don't know if that's the case with Morbius. So did Sony have to do the same thing? Just say, hey, by the way, this is what we're doing in the movie, and then did Marvel say, hey, that's okay? Or if they say that's not okay, that Sony's answer is, tough luck, right? But
Um,
they do
it,
give feedback at least, but
I do know in the Morbius movie, obviously from reading reviews and that, they did keep the line about Venom
yeah.
in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
which makes things even more confusing.
Does it?
Yeah, well, you try to figure out what's happening in the movie, where it's taking place, how it relates
Yeah,
to the MCU, right?
I mean, the trailers kind of confuse that, and from what we know, which was a topic on the last podcast, the director didn't have intentions to add all these Spider-Man Easter eggs
Mm.
in the trailer because they weren't in the movie. So there's that Oscorp tower we just saw in the trailer there, and then there's like the Spider-Man image on the wall and all that. He was asked in an interview, "Hey, what's with all the references they weren't in the movie?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. The studio added that in."
Yeah.
So like, I think just the intention was this is set in the Venom universe,
Mm.
and for some reason Vulture's there, and it wasn't meant to be like this huge confusing where is this set sort of movie.
Yeah, um, I think they should have just left Vulture out of it completely
Yeah,
and
but
just
it's the
made it clear.
multiverse. Multiverse, you never don't know what's happening now, right?
Well, obviously Sony doesn't know what's happening, and like again, no intention of paying to see it.
Yeah.
I'll just wait for it to come out on streaming unless someone offers to pay for me to go see it in the cinema.
What if I pay you to go see it and then you give us your thoughts in the podcast?
Oh, I mean, I go back to work on Wednesday, so
Okay.
and,
Yeah.
and then by the time I come
Convenient.
back, I'll have to see Doctor Strange,
Yeah. Mhm.
and yeah, I'll be pretty busy. Look, just lots of stuff happening at the moment. Can't find time to go
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it.
No, no, I understand. So, speaking of Doctor Strange, um, I yeah, you haven't been on a podcast in a while. So, what are your thoughts on Doctor Strange?
I am, yeah, I'm hyped and excited to see it. Um, I have no idea what they plan on doing with it, with like Doctor Strange, like it's going to fit and change the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously we see a lot of references to like the zombie universe from like What If and
I'm
things
not
like that.
convinced that's a zombie universe.
Yeah,
Those images. Yeah,
because you see Zombie Wanda and Zombie Doctor
I don't think that's
Strange.
zombie Wanda. I think it's fucked up Wanda. And I think it's decaying Doctor Strange trying to fight off whatever he's fighting. I'm not convinced
Do
they're
you think it's
zombies.
Mephisto?
I don't think Mephisto's in this movie. I'm not. I'm not one of those React channels that breaks down where Mephisto is everywhere.
No,
uh,
yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, yeah, just how everything fits together,
mhm,
what actually happens in the movies, because we see, Ultron bots, and then in this
mhm.
shot we got the what looks like to be the Illuminati,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's just really interesting. Um,
Now,
so I'm pretty hyped to see how it all fits together.
yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can guess about this movie because it is a very out there concept. Um, I will say, I want to ask this question though. Do you think this is going to be a fan service movie? Like people are making it out to be like Spider-Man Far From Home, or do you think people are like their expectations are too high on like all the different cameos and all this other stuff that we're gonna see?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think as far as cameos go, I think besides like alternate universe versions of Strange and Wanda,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the Illuminati that we see in that shot, I think that's about as bigger cameos as we'll get.
The Illuminati is the biggest cameo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm totally expecting, Patrick Stewart
Mm-hmm.
as the Professor X from the original X-Men cartoon from the 90s.
Oh, you think that's the Charles Xavier?
Yep, yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think there was a new teaser trailer that came out
Yeah.
maybe like a day or two, like one of the 30-second TV spots they call them,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the back of a bald person sitting down,
Yeah.
and it's got the same sort of shape as that chair from the cartoon.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so
That
I'm
is
expecting that.
interesting.
I'm expecting Tom Cruise as
Really?
uh, which Iron is it? Superior Iron
Superior
Man?
Iron Man, yeah. See,
Yeah,
I think it's just fans theories, but based on nothing. This is me.
yeah,
Is it because of the look of the Ultron bots? Is that why people are?
yeah. And then you see like someone that looks like they're in an Iron Man suit type of thing, which could easily be
I
um
guess, yeah.
another version of Captain Marvel as well, Um, so like there, and I think Illuminati is going to be the big like cameo
I, I
in the
I'm
movie.
I'm 100%.
Not
Like,
so much, yeah. Not I guess cameo is kind of a probably the wrong term to use. I think that they'll be the biggest, um, you know, guest characters in the movie.
I think they'll play an important role. I don't know
Yeah.
how much of the movie they'll be in. I think they're going to set up things later in the MCU. So I think
Um,
they're going to be very important in this movie and in the MCU in general.
I
Um,
think I think they'll be used as sort of an education to Doctor Strange about the multiverse.
yeah, yeah. Hmm. I think America Chavez is going to be that too because she's the one who can literally jump through portals in the multiverse. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to meet up with her and have sort of like a better understanding of the multiverse. We'll meet up with Wanda because he wants to learn more, and then he'll stumble upon the Illuminati, who's going to give him the full context and everything. I
Yeah, I
think
think he'll start
Mhm.
jumping between universes
Yeah,
and breaking things, and the Illuminati's like, "Hey, can you not?"
yeah. I think people are overhyping the the different types of characters we'll see because in the trailers we've seen like who has been announced, and then they threw in Patrick Stewart, which I think
Which
sort
is
of
still
snowballed.
not official yet.
No, it is because
Is it?
yeah, they did the trailer and people are
Hmm.
like, that sounds like Patrick Stewart, and they like been coy about it, and then the next day they're like, yeah, that's Patrick Stewart. There's like an
Oh
official
right,
statement,
because
and he did an interview, and he's like, yeah, that was me. So
the last interview I saw about him when they were asking about the trailer,
mhm.
he just said there's a lot of good impressionists that does his voice well. So,
Yeah, yeah, he's playing around with it, but then after he clarified that it was him. Um,
well, it reminds me of the Paul Bettany interview for
yes,
WandaVision,
or
where
he's
he talks about working with an actor he's always wanted to work with, and that the actor is superb, and he was talking about himself.
yes. So you think that's a lie? We're not actually seeing Patrick Stewart, or
No, I think it's Patrick
yeah,
Stewart. I just didn't realize that it had been confirmed.
yeah, yeah. It's been confirmed. But I think that kind of snowballed it, where people are like, "Oh, we're gonna see Hugh Jackman. We're gonna see Tobey Maguire. We're gonna see like all these other previous movie actors and everything. And I think that's just a little too much. And I understand this is a movie that's title is the Multiverse of Madness. And I understand that we will be getting some of that weirdness in this movie where we're going to see alternate versions of characters that we know because that's
Yeah,
the nature of the title of this movie. But I don't think we're going to see all the past Marvel movies. We're gonna get Wesley Snipes as Blade, and we're gonna get like all these and Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider and all this stuff. I don't think that's happening. I think we're seeing the characters we see in this movie. There's gonna be some fun alternate takes. I don't think we're gonna see any like past actors. I think Patrick Stewart's the exception, and I really love Matt's theory because there's the X-Men '90s cartoon revival that's coming out, and that falls right in line. And personally, I don't like the idea of the Fox X-Men Professor X crossing over into this movie, and I kind of shared my thoughts on that last time. But I love the idea of the '90s X-Men
yeah.
um, Professor X being played by Patrick Stewart in this movie. I think that's perfect. I love that.
And yeah, yeah, and I completely agree. And like, I think I think the most we'll get for cameos of like different multiverse heroes
Mm-hmm.
is I think we may get silhouettes like in
Okay,
No
yeah,
Way Home,
like in No Way Home, yeah.
because
References.
there seems to be a montage of them going through different multiverses.
Do you think we'll see
So
Kang the Conqueror?
oh, now tricky question.
Yeah, is it?
Will we get Kang the Conqueror or one of his variants?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like alternate versions of Kang himself too, like calling himself Kang the Conqueror.
Oh,
Uh,
is it? Um,
yeah, but yeah, it's any of his variants or himself. I don't know.
I think yeah, maybe. Um, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's hard to tell because we don't know when this takes place.
Takes
With
place
we've all been,
everywhere and anywhere all at once. And so,
yeah. Um, but because I think the main theory is that a lot of these multiverse MCU shows and movies are sort of lining up together with Loki. You know that scene where they, I think that he says they're over the threshold or whatever.
yeah,
I think they're
because
all
these
lining
timelines
up.
aren't supposed to exist. So I mean, this is happening after Loki, after the events of Loki, which is a weird thing
Yeah,
to say
exactly.
because the time is when you think of time, it's different when you say this happens after Loki, but
Yeah,
this is a consequence of Loki. We're seeing this movie. Otherwise, this movie would not exist, or these
it's
timelines.
interesting to think about too. So we see the Illuminati,
Mm-hmm.
and if we go with the theory that they're trying to fix the multiverse or whatever, or
I don't
keep it
think that's
safe
what they're
and
doing.
protect it, I well, that's what I think. So, boo to you.
Okay.
Um, do you think like do you think they would have come in because of Loki?
No, I think they're a byproduct of He Who Remains and Loki and Sylvie. I don't think they have anything to do with them or
Hmm.
Kang or the TVA. I think they're their own entity that exists because of what happened in Loki.
And do you think they're all from the same universe or
No,
different
different
verses?
universes, different universes.
Yep.
Um, because I feel like they have to be right.
Hmm.
This is sort of the thing about this movie.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah. Let's make a multiverse movie and talk about two different
two different
universes.
universes. I mean, it's still a multiverse at that point. Uh,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think this is going to be this big fan service Spider-Man No Way Home sort of situation that we got. I think this is too. And while it's called Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and you would expect that to be the case, I think this movie is too important, setting up other things in the MCU and plot points going forward,
Mm.
as the phase as a whole and the
Hmm.
future. Like if there's an Avengers movie, whatever that's gonna look like, I think this sort of sets up everything. So I think it's too important of a movie to be, not that Spider-Man Far From Home, or I'm sorry, No Way Home was not an important movie or anything, but it's not Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
It
I
had to
think
be a fan service movie. Like it was the right opportunity to do it.
No Way Home was partially, let's do something with the multiverse to test the waters,
Hmm.
and let's have some fan service,
To introduce
but
Doctor Strange, yeah.
and let's have Doctor Strange in there so we can sort of lead into the multiverse of madness, so we can kind of gauge
Hmm.
where Strange is at in his life.
Yeah. I think things just
Uh,
kind of lined up with Far From or No Way Home's story. God damn it. Um, where they kind of had the perfect opportunity to make that movie. But
mm,
another reason why I think my theory, or that leads to my theory, is that um, there's this quote here, and I want to pull up the original article. Um, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna use this quoted article here. I'm not gonna mention the source because it's pulled from another. Um, so yeah, Sam Raimi has only seen a few MCU movies,
mm-hmm,
so I
mm-hmm.
feel like, and I don't know, like, so that's MCU, but also like what other past superhero movies that he's seen, where he's like, you know what, it would be a great idea if we played fan service to all these old movies. Like, I don't know that
Yep.
to be the case. Um, he's very much a comic book fan, and he knows a lot of these characters and like how they interact and everything. So I feel like that's the reason. I think he knows about the Illuminati. He knows about the multiverse. He knows about the role of Professor X and why he wanted and why he would want Patrick Stewart in this role for this movie. I think that's as far as it goes, as far as his thought process. Because he says, like, when asked about this, um, he said he had seen Iron Man, the first Avengers, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange, and a little clips of other movies. And he says he's only really seen 4 or 5, so he's not that familiar with the MCU as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know how you feel about that in terms of one, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, how this will affect other people's theories about what happens in Multiverse of Madness, or how this affects him directing an MCU movie in general. You know.
I Yeah, no, I'm not that worried. He's gonna have consultants
Hmm.
on hand to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this. Is this gonna break anything?"
Yeah, he's not making.
Or
Let's be clear. He's not making his movie.
mm,
He's hired
yeah, no,
by Kevin Feige to make Kevin Feige's movie. Is
and
really what
and
he's
and
doing.
and I'm not sure how many people would be familiar with Sam Raimi, but he's a brilliant horror director as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah,
And when the I can't remember the original director's name.
Scott Derrickson, I think.
Yeah, he originally wanted Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness to be like the first horror
Mm.
MCU movie.
When it was
But
announced on the stage, he said he was going to do that. But I feel like Marvel has watered it down. Like Marvel never actually said that.
yeah, I think they've gone for the scariest
Yeah,
as opposed to being a
a
horror.
horror. Yeah, because I don't
Yeah.
think they wanted a horror. I think he wanted a horror movie,
Mm,
and that, in addition to Marvel wanting it to set up other movies and have these other cameos and everything, it's a very much a Edgar Wright Ant-Man kind of situation where he's like, I don't want to do that, but they needed to have him do that because
Yeah.
again, it's not what they want. It's what Marvel wants. This is Kevin Feige's vision, and they need to execute it. So Kevin Feige knows Sam Raimi. He knows his worked with him, so he knows like this is the right director to do this. If Scott Derrickson can't do it, I don't think he
I
needs to see everything in the MCU. I think he just needs to
no.
focus on what he needs for his job, and everything else he will be filled in on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at the most, watch, obviously Doctor Strange, Infinity War, Endgame, and Spider-Man. Those are the key ones that involve Doctor Strange.
Or even if
And
he doesn't, like again, he's got
yeah,
people who will tell him all this stuff. We'll give him
yeah,
the
and it's
rundown.
not like, and as you said, he's there to make the movie, not to write it per se.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's going to have his own little um, bits and pieces, but thinking in talking about Sam Raimi's original past directing,
Mm-hmm.
obviously he was Tobey Maguire Spider-Man director. I would love for one little cameo to see Bruce Campbell as Mysterio.
He has a role in the movie.
He
He's
always has a role in a
he,
Sam Raimi movie.
he's just not sure in the like a more recent interview. He's not sure if it's been cut
Oh,
because
it'd be hard to.
he says there's been a lot of reshoots.
Yeah, they were even reshooting during when No Way Home
Mm-hmm.
came out
Yeah.
because there was an interview on, I think it was Jimmy Fallon, where Benedict Crumble-Snatch was talking about doing reshoots up the road.
Yeah. They that's the way Marvel works. Like they know what kind of team they have and how their production work is. Even with a pandemic, they know how to schedule things so that way if there's a change that they need to make, they can do it last as like the most last minute way possible for it to still be in the movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, the Avengers shawarma scene is an example.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
I don't
done
know.
last minute. Where you can even see like Steve Rogers had his like hand over his face because the actor had a beard at that time and he
Yeah,
couldn't
Chris
show it.
Evans. I
Yeah,
think.
so he's just like leaning. He's not actually eating any shawarma.
Yeah, no, it's funny to think about that scene
Mm-hmm.
because it adds like nothing to the
It
movie or the
doesn't,
MCU
no.
in general, but it's just fun.
Yeah, and it's mentioned, you know, in the MCU later. Hawkeye had a mention of it, so it's like it's an iconic moment in the MCU, but it didn't. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't add anything. um, I want to ask if you want to talk about any of this other stuff before we figure out where we want to go or how we want to end this. You want to talk about Ryan Coogler joining Ironheart as a producer?
No, I
Okay.
mean, I'm not super familiar with any of that stuff.
Okay.
I don't even know. I didn't even know Ironheart was a thing, to be honest.
Oh, I'm super excited about Ironheart. Um, here's an interesting thing. I do want to talk about this. So we've talked about. First of all, I want to update everybody. In the time of our last podcast and this one, where we talked about Disney censoring the Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, they've reverted it back. And I checked myself; it is back to its original version. So if you want to rewatch the series in all of its violent glory, it is there. But now they're straight up removing episodes apparently from Agent Carter and X-Men, the animated series. Um,
Yeah, because I watch Agent Carter with a passion. Um, so did they? Um, I mean, I think I've seen the first season of Agent Carter.
Hmm. It only has two
Um,
seasons, so.
well, yeah, well, I've seen half of Agent Carter then. Um, and watching X Men, I was a kid,
Yeah. I
which
will
is
say,
nearly
I will say,
25 years ago.
yeah. Um, there was a point last year where I was trying to like rewatch the animated X-Men movies, or sorry, show. Um, and it's such a weird show to watch now. It's it's a show of its time. I don't think it's aged well. I know people love
No.
it, and I can see I love it for because I love these characters. I love how they're animated, and it just reminds me of that time and those and the comics and everything, and it sort of like launched that era of that design of superhero characters. Like they kind of defined it, like relaunched the X-Men comics to fit the animated series because they did such a good job with it. Um,
Mm.
but it's so weird. The
I
thing,
will say there is one um, superhero animated TV show that was in the 90s that still holds up really well.
okay.
It's not Marvel. Batman the animated series still
I,
holds up really well.
I've been thinking about rewatching that too.
Yeah, I rewatched the first season a few months back,
I gotta
and
do
it
that.
holds up real well. So, did
Uh,
they say why they took them away? Was it a licensing thing?
I honestly don't remember here. So Deadline picked up on the incident, reporting that Disney Plus was aware of the issue at hand. Let me remind everyone, just say that they said this exact same thing for why the Falcon and Winter Soldier was changed, and they didn't change it for the longest time. They didn't change it back for the longest time. It's not until now where they changed it back. Um, they explained that the error was due to an accident caused by a technical issue. This was the exact same excuse. The
Mm,
service is hoping for the issue to be resolved imminently and for the episodes to be restored on the service, but may not see a fix until the end of the day on Tuesday, April 19th. I have not followed up to see if that is the case, if it's reverted back. There's other series as well. Uh, they include DuckTales, Lizzie McGuire, Owl
not Lizzie.
House. I don't know what Owl House is, and Rocket and Groot. Um,
Rocket and Groot.
yeah, it's an animated Disney XD or whatever the kids Disney
Uh,
channel is. Um, I will say I feel like this isn't going to be the last time we see this. I think Disney is testing stuff out, and it's not seamless, and people are catching on because I think they're going to be implementing more parental controls
mm,
and alternate versions of content on their platform. And I think
mhm.
we're just seeing the sort of like spillover of what that technical process is on there, and that's not going that smoothly.
Yeah, because at the moment, I obviously got it set up so I can watch all the adult stuff
Hmm.
on Disney Plus. But no, it makes sense when you talk about because I asked you the other day what the censoring in Falcon and Winter Soldier was, but it makes sense if they're trying to edit it to a family friendly standard
Yeah.
so you can watch it without those parental controls.
Honestly, it wasn't that significant. It's
Mm,
like it does have some sort of impact on the context and the severity
mm,
of what those scenes are trying to convey. But
mhm.
ultimately, in terms of the plot and the show as a whole, it wasn't that significant. And I think people are just overreacting over the idea of censorship in general.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the scenes where a woman gets pinned down to like a container by a big giant pipe that the Winter Soldier like
Mhm.
nailed into her shoulder. And then the edited one is that it bounced off, but it still looked like she was pinned down to with nothing to the container. And then the big one is one of the characters gets shot. In the original version, his eyes are open and there's blood everywhere. In the edited one, his eyes are closed. There's no blood at all. So I don't think it was that big of an issue where it fundamentally changed the show.
Yeah.
But it is significant to the point where it is worth talking about in terms of censorship. But
yeah, I think it's just a matter of them trying to edit to get around some of those parental controls. But should kids be watching the Falcon and Winter Soldier anyway?
well, that's up to the parents. I mean, there is a more disturbing part of that show for kids to watch, which is the image of Captain America's shield being completely bloodied up.
Did they edit that out?
No.
Yeah, it was some weird editing choices. Like, you can see how they left that in.
I think that's a more significant plot in in terms of the show, where you can't edit that out. That has to be in it. That served a purpose.
Yep.
And I think, some are going to argue, depends on the parents, the issue of race in America in the show and how they might not want their kids to watch that, which, tough luck, that's history. But I don't know what's going to end up happening with the parental controls, how that's going to change, because while there is violence and blood and, adult themes in a lot of Marvel stuff, not just the Disney Plus shows, but the movies themselves.
Yeah, like you got Shang-Chi, which, while it's not an adult film, there is a lot of violence in that film.
Yeah.
How do you edit out the violence in that sort of film when the martial arts is the way of storytelling?
But it's not. Here's the thing: they're not Logan. They're not Deadpool. These are still made for kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it's going to be up to the parents to decide like what their kids can watch, whatever. But these are still characters designed for kids, from kids characters from comic books to sell merchandise for kids. So it's understandable. Now there is more adult versions of these characters. There's the Netflix shows. There's all this other stuff. But I think Disney, they're under different leadership now, and there's sort of like an internal fight to win over that control right now. That's a whole backstory drama that we don't have time to get into. But I think the brand in general wants to be family friendly, and that's why a lot of people are up in arms about adding the violent stuff to Disney Plus, is because they're ruining that family friendly image, and now they're trying to add the parental controls to sort of alleviate that. But
I also think it might be part of them. Disney Plus isn't everywhere, right?
No.
So maybe countries with stricter rules on what violence can be portrayed in media, maybe this is their way of trying to get into that audience as well.
Yeah, maybe. I honestly don't know. I don't know what the answers are. I don't even know where this is going. Like I don't know what kind of point I'm trying to make at this point. But Doctor Strange, I think, is censored somewhere in some part of the world. I just read that somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was either China or...
I don't think it was China.
Somewhere in the Middle East.
Banned in multiple countries. Okay, great. Do you want to guess why? I want to guess why.
Magic. I think it's magic.
Magic's a good one, yeah. I'm going to say...
Harry Potter had a lot of trouble in a lot of countries because of magic.
I'm going to say a more obvious one. There's a gay character.
Which one's the gay character?
America Chavez.
Well, we don't know.
She's like she's
in the comics.
She's one of the defining gay characters in Marvel Comics, and she is the daughter of a lesbian couple.
Okay. So you think that even though we don't know whether that's going to translate to the movie,
I think it
which it
will.
probably will.
I think
Yeah,
it will. Yeah.
yeah. They're just going to ban it on that.
Yeah, I think that's it. I have the article here, and I think I'm right. Because I just read a little blurb. It says Marvel Studios now approaches the finish line for Doctor Strange. Blah blah blah. Just the other day, Saudi Arabia banned the release of Doctor Strange 2 in its theaters due to America Chavez being shown as gay on screen. So there you go.
So that there might be something, the press. Maybe there's a cut of the trailers or something the press have seen.
Yeah. You think
That
like
show
Star
her.
Wars? Think they're going to go the Star Wars route where they remove that scene of those two characters kissing at the end of the movie in different parts of the country?
What scene?
There's a scene at the end of the movie, the last Star Wars movie,
Oh,
where they blew up the Death Star as they always do, and everybody's celebrating, and there's two women that shared a kiss at the end of the
oh
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In the background, yeah.
Yeah, and then they remove that
Oh, did they?
moment in other parts of the world where you know,
Well,
it's
they didn't even have Finn on the poster in China. And for those that don't know Star Wars, Finn is a black character.
yeah.
Oh no, that's really interesting. So the press, or like I don't know how movies get released, um, but it must be like they have to go through a censorship board, right? Uh,
I don't know. I know that I think China is a really big one, and I'm guessing Saudi Arabia too, where they're a huge market for these movies, and these
but it
studios,
sounds
like, it's more profitable
like
for these studios to be inclusive. Most places of the world, especially in North America, um,
mm,
but it's more profitable for them to not be not be bigoted in any way, but to not present that stuff. Like, not they're not standing up for it there, but they just rather, okay, we just won't mention it, you know.
um, but it sounds like from that article,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's not something that can be edited out.
If they, well, I wouldn't rule it out,
Mm.
but I would be surprised if they did. Like,
It
because
sounds like it's more than the kiss from Star Wars,
yeah, it's
if you know
the
what I mean.
entire character's
Mm, mm.
backstory, right? And I think that's, at this point, Marvel's got to stand the ground, and it is banned, so they they stood by it. That's what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Yeah,
good for them. But I mean, this is the point where they need to stand their ground, because they're going to be introducing more characters like this, because there are more characters like this from the comics that have um they have roles coming up where it's the natural next step to introduce them into these movies, into these TV series, and they don't want to erase that part of the character, because again, they're defining traits of those characters. um so rather than just try to censor everything that they have in the pipeline coming out, they're sticking their foot in the sand now and saying, no, this character's gay. And
yeah,
if you want to ban it, then that's your choice. We're not changing the movie, though.
yeah. And I think, and I completely agree, 100%,
Mm-hmm.
that you really can't tell a modern story that's so expansive and has so many people in it without including those types of characters from those communities.
Yeah, 100%. Um, and
There's people that still get mad about black people being in movies. So
I know, and you know what? I love people getting mad. It's so enjoying. To be like, oh, you're having a breakdown over something that does not matter to you. Like it should not matter to
Yeah.
you. It doesn't affect you in any way. It affects other people. That's just who
Mm.
it's for. It's not for you. But go ahead and be mad because I enjoy it. um, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has been delayed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that it's been delayed. You know,
Did you watch the
animation
first one?
multiple times. Yeah.
Is it the best
Um.
Spider-Man movie?
Hmm, yeah. You know.
That's the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's between it and No Way Home for me.
Yeah, I
I'm
feel like it's here's the thing. I like as a movie, I like Homecoming better than No Way Home. I had some
yeah.
time to think about it.
I struggle getting through Homecoming.
Really.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I feel
I,
like
I, I, it's still a good movie though.
mhm. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like
The reason I
Homecoming
struggle.
is a it's just a I think it's a perfect Spider-Man movie. It just has like everything I could want in a Spider-Man movie and I think it portrayed it perfectly. Um and No Way Home was awesome. No Way Home was a good Spider-Verse movie.
Mm,
But I feel like Homecoming was the better Spider-Man movie and I feel like I enjoyed it as a movie for that reason more.
yeah. Yeah. And like I absolutely loved Michael Keaton as the Vulture, and
Mhm.
I love Tom Holland as Spider Man, and love all the movies. But yeah, I just don't find Homecoming as rewatchable as No Way Home or Far From Home.
Oh, you think Far From Home's better than Homecoming?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, I could see that, but I don't know. I feel like
I
Homecoming's
love
better.
I love the visuals with Mysterio
They were good.
in Far From Home. Those sequences, especially towards the end, just before that leads to him getting hit by the train.
Oh yeah.
Like those visuals are just amazing, and especially watching them in 4K, it just
Uh, Spider Verse also looks
Do we know
amazing.
and yeah, do we know anything
There's a trailer.
plot wise about the movie?
Yeah, what we know is the art style is changing in between universes, which is cool.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but in terms of the plot, yeah, Spider-Man 2099 is involved, played by Oscar Isaac, I believe.
yep, yep.
Um, and in the trailer, Gwen visits Miles, and he's grounded, and she's like, "Oh, is Spider-Man grounded?" And then it cuts to like a montage of him swinging around different universes and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
in terms of who's the
No,
villain, or
it sounds like they figured out a way to travel
yeah,
between universes in between the last movie and this one.
yeah, I'm sure like Gwen's found a way. I don't know. I don't know fully what the plot's gonna be. He
Mm.
was fighting Spider-Man 2099, like Miles and Spider-Man 2099. So I don't know what that's about.
Hmm.
Um, I know I'm not gonna get what I want. I need to temper
Hmm.
expectations. The Spider-Verse comics, I love the Spider-Verse comics. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you should read those comics. Um, a my favorite like villain character, like one of my favorite villain characters, is this multiverse uh vampire kind of character that feeds off killing spider totems is what they're called across the multiverse. So they're just hunting
Did
down
they also
killing Spider-Man.
didn't they do that in the Spider-Man animated series as well?
Uh
I'm
which
sure
one?
they did a
Which one?
Spider-Verse, like the original '90s one.
No, I don't think so because I think this character came after those it definitely
Right.
came after
And
those cartoons, yeah. For sure.
yeah, I know they did a Spider-Verse thing in the original animated show.
Yeah,
No, that's
they did something similar. Yeah,
yeah, but no, that's yeah, no, that's really cool. But yeah,
it's
I don't think we'll.
it's a character that is honestly not popular. So I understand why like nobody ever talks about this character outside of the Spider Verse comics. So I understand why studios don't want to go with that character for the
Mhm,
story in the movies. So we've had two sort of adaptations on Spider Verse now. We've had the Spider Verse movie and we've had Spider Man No Way Home. That character
mhm.
hasn't even been hinted at. So it's kind of like disappointing because I really want it, but I know it's never gonna happen. So it kind of sucks.
Um,
But
it is interesting. Like you talk about the Spider Verse and it being animated,
mhm.
and it being animated leaves the door wide open for a lot more spider characters than live action movies does.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think it'd be really cool if we saw like the PS4
Oh,
Spider Man.
oh yeah. The PS4 Spider-Man has been in the like sequel to Spider-Verse. There's sort of like two sequels to Spider-Verse. One's like a limited series thing that doesn't matter. That
Mm-hmm.
was the villain and that was Electro, I think. Um
Yep.
and the like the proper sequel to it, the PS4 Spider-Man was in it. Um but it yeah, the animation does open a lot of room, and we already know that there is a spin-off to this series with the Spider Women. So there's going to
Okay.
be some more Spider Women characters on screen.
Will
Um,
we get the most famous spider, a female spider superhero, Spider Bitch?
I don't know who Spider Bitch is.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so Spider Bitch is the who is she? She's like the descendant of Peter Parker, like
Oh, Ashley
Peter Parker's
Barton. Yeah, yeah,
daughter.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe.
the
Yeah.
Logan in the Logan universe.
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Old Man Logan.
I just think Spider Bitch is such the funniest name.
There's a lot of funny spider character names for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's possible because I think she's a notable spider character. I didn't know that was her name though, to be honest. Uh, yeah, it sucks because I think this movie was delayed already because of the pandemic. And this is an animated movie made in the pandemic, so I mean, a delay is
Mm.
not unexpected, but it does kind of suck.
And also, they might be, you know, might have to add stuff in.
Hmm.
Um, you never know.
Yeah. Uh, Matt, I will ask you, what do you want to end on?
Um, do you want to have a quick chat about the 2021 Disney Plus stuff that came out for Marvel?
Yeah, you want to reflect on that? Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah. So we had, what did we have? We had, WandaVision,
yep.
Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, and What If, and Hawkeye for the TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they were all good in their own ways, but I feel like the weakest one was Hawkeye.
Why is that?
It just it didn't seem as grand as the
What
other series.
the
It was
definitely
it was
the other shows are more out there
yeah, and
and
it also
wider in scope.
it doesn't feel like it has a massive impact. And I was kind of hoping it would deal more um with Hawkeye's origin, like because I know nothing about next to nothing about Hawkeye, like deal with like how he came to be in Shield, how he got his training, and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it'd be more Hawkeye Clint Barton instead of being like the Clint and what's her name
Kate
show.
Bishop.
Yeah, Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
Even though it was still a good show, I just feel like out of all the shows that came out on Disney Plus, it was the weakest, and
Yeah.
probably not one I'll rewatch anytime soon.
Um, for Hawkeye, yeah, it's honestly, I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
I will definitely want to rewatch it around Christmas time, probably every year. Because I don't think I would have enjoyed that show as much as I did if it wasn't premiering on Christmas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I was in that mood,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of just delivered that. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's. I hate Christmas. Christmas sucks.
well, for you, Christmas is different.
Well, I know the Christmases are the same across.
Christmases are the same. The
Yeah, I don't. It just sucks. Um, and yeah, and like I'm not saying it was a bad show. I just think out of all of them, it was just the weakest.
well,
Obviously, the ending was a bit eh.
you
Like
mean
they
with
brought Kingpin.
Kingpin? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
do you wanna stick on Hawkeye, or do you want to like go through 2021 of Marvel?
yeah. Let's go through 2021 of
Okay,
Marvel.
because we started when what if was happening, this
Yep.
podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
we haven't even had a chance to like go through and reflect on WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and Loki, which I feel like at least two out of the three of those shows are like worth like going over and analyzing, you know? Um,
Yeah.
but WandaVision came out at a time where we had a year drought of Marvel content. The last thing we watched was Spider-Man Far From Home, where
Really.
yeah, his identity got revealed to the world, and that's it. This is after the blip. We didn't get anything from the MCU for a year because of the pandemic. Everything kept getting delayed. WandaVision was not supposed to be the first thing that came out from Marvel. I think it was supposed to be Black Widow, and I think the Falcon Winter
Yeah.
Soldier was supposed to come out before WandaVision. But everything got flipped around, and WandaVision was the first thing that came out. I will
Yeah. I
say,
think um, it was supposed to be Black Widow,
mhm.
then Falcon and the Winter Soldier because there's a character
Yeah,
in
that was in
Falcon
both
Winter.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then yeah, I think WandaVision was supposed to be the third one released.
I'm glad WandaVision came out first out of all that, because it
Yeah.
was at a point where it's like, I need my Marvel fix.
Yeah.
And they had a show which was they gave us the first three episodes, and they gave us little clues on how this fit into the MCU, but it was such a different show, different concept, that
Oh yeah.
it just made you think, right? It's
Mm.
like what's going on, what's happening, and you're trying to. For me, I kept rewatching them. I'm like, how does this all tie in? So I had to keep rewatching that show. Um,
And I think especially when they added um, Quick Silver into it,
mhm.
the old Pietro Ralph Boner, which I'm kind of disappointed at that it was in the end a joke. Um, but I think it was more of a testing the waters for some of that multiverse concept stuff.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, I really liked it, and you know, I think it gave us a great villain in Agatha.
Yep.
She
Yep.
Sparky, so and we
Agatha,
all know.
yeah, I really love Catherine Hahn in the show. I thought she did
Mm,
such a good job. I did speak about Ralph Boner in the last podcast, where I think both me and Jordan agreed that we both liked how they handled that character.
Mm.
because for me, like I think most people agree with you with your sentiment. It felt like a throwaway joke just to mess with the fans.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't feel that way. I I don't know. I felt that was the best way that they could handle it. I can't remember what I said in the last podcast because I felt like I explained myself perfectly in that podcast, but
Mm. Mm.
it was I didn't want like the same reason I don't want Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier in Multiverse of Madness. I don't want the Fox universe aside from Deadpool because it's just the nature of the character of Deadpool. He's immune to all of this discussion.
Yep.
Just the
He
character that he is.
respect.
He gets a pass for anything. Um,
Yeah.
but the rest of the Fox X Men, he's never really been like properly tied into the X Men anyway. So, but the rest of the
Mm.
X Men Fox universe or X Men Fox multiverse, how I picture it, to be honest, um,
Mhm.
I don't want that to have anything to do with the MCU. I
Yeah.
enjoyed my time with most of it. I still love a lot of those movies, and I will probably still rewatch them. But I'm done with it.
Yep.
I've had my time. I'm ready to move on. I want to start fresh. I don't want remnants of that universe to spill over into the MCU. I feel like it taints the MCU.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
I just really want to start those characters off fresh. So then to have like this like tease character of Quicksilver or a fake Quicksilver, and then them explaining it's Wanda recasting Pietro, which I think is just a funny way to introduce it, and the Ralph Boner joke is it was in an interview and a lot of people don't get the reference. It's a TV character that is like he's inspired by that just I can't remember from what show. It was just this character is never explained. His name's Boner, and um, it was there's some significant reference to that. So it is a reference just like anything else is in the show. Towards TV sitcoms. So it did fit in with what they were trying to do with that show. Um,
Yeah.
so I felt it was handled perfectly fine. I did like their take on it, so I was completely fine with it. But I feel like I'm in the minority, and I can understand why a lot of people are pissed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And but I'm not going to burn a house down over it.
Hmm.
Um, but I think my personal feeling was it would have been cooler if it was just like um how she made the kids and Vision. It was all part of that reality
Yeah,
that melted away at the end of the series. But it and the plot point where it was Agatha all along, um, and that song was nominated for an Emmy as well.
great song.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and but the plot point made perfect sense when they explained that it wasn't actually him at all. It
yeah,
was
it was
just
just
that
some guy.
Ava. Yeah, I think I think people get angry at the fact that it had he had such a stupid name like Ralph Boner.
Do you think it? Yeah, I mean I hear that argument too, but I feel like a lot of people are upset because they felt it was just a throwaway slap in the face to what fans wanted more out of, I guess.
Yeah, they were expecting.
Yeah.
They saw him and were expecting to start seeing mutants.
And I feel like we're gonna have a moment like that in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, where maybe it's like your theory. This is a Professor
Mm.
Xavier from the '90s cartoon, or maybe it's something else. And people are gonna build up, oh, this is a crossover from an older thing, and they're gonna feel like there's something throwaway. And I feel like we're maybe building up our expectations a little bit too much.
Well, look at so we spoke about Venom and No Way Home.
Yeah.
Like the post-credit scene for Venom was Tom Hardy's Venom crossing over to the MCU.
Yeah.
Then the mid-credit scene for No Way Home was Tom Hardy going back to his universe.
Mm-hmm.
I people are going to get angry over that because they thought it was going to be the whole crossover.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel
but
like
at the end of the day, it fit the plot perfectly. Um,
do you feel like that was needed to have him in that movie at that point?
no, and well, I will say he was needed because Tom Hardy's the greatest actor of our generation, and I will
Okay.
never say no to watching Tom Hardy on screen,
Okay. Fair enough.
even if it's Venom.
Um, I will say I was completely fine having Venom set in the MCU,
Yeah,
which maybe Marvel might have had that consideration. Most likely not, just based on Kevin Feige's noticeable gulp in that interview where Amy
mm,
Pascal said they're all connected. Um, but I feel like if Marvel says no, he's not in our universe, I feel like that was the best way to handle that situation.
yeah,
Where hey, let's throw a nod over to the fans who keep asking where's Venom,
mm.
and then just push him back into Sony's thing. It was like he's here. Okay, we're done with him. Sony can do whatever they want.
And I think it. Getting completely off track from the Disney Plus shows now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think it opened up a really interesting door for the symbiote side of
yeah.
things in the Venom universe.
I don't know what they're gonna do with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot they can do, um, and it'll be interesting to see if they use symbiotes in the MCU, especially with Gore the God Butcher.
Yeah, I don't think they legally can do the Venom tie-in to Gore the God Butcher
But
in
can they use
Thor.
symbiotes?
Can they use symbiotes? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Unless they make a deal with Sony, which Marvel has done before, particularly with
yeah.
Fox. I just think Sony's a little bit less, you know, um, I I I, I don't know what the word is. They're not as willing to
Yeah.
work unless all their emails get leaked and they're in a really big heat of trouble and their movies aren't performing as well as they used to. Then they're willing to play ball. But at the moment, that's not the case. So
See,
they hold all the cards.
I mean, to be fair, like Spider Verse is probably the only recently decent Marvel film that Sony have
Yes, but
done.
Venom makes money. Morbius,
It did.
even though Morbius was considered a bad movie, I think it still made money, right? I think it still did good in the box office. Not
Yeah, I'm not too
great,
sure.
but
But no, getting back on topic, I think WandaVision was the perfect, especially after coming from Far From Home. You know, we had just recently had because I was pretty if now I was pretty sure before everything got delayed
yeah.
because of pandemics. Um, Phase 4
Hmm.
was actually supposed to start with Far From Home, wasn't it?
No, no. Far From Home was always
Okay.
supposed to be the end of Phase 4.
Yeah. Okay. I that must be just something I had in my head.
Yeah, it's supposed to
But
start with Black Widow.
yeah, I don't know. Like as much as I, loved and was hyped for a Black Widow movie,
Hmm.
it was nice to have something that felt super instead of like a street level type thing, especially after Endgame and continuing on the world after Endgame instead of going back into the past with Black Widow.
Yeah, that's a great point. Where we got a continuation of some sort
Mm.
of where we left off in Endgame.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I do like what I like is that these what these Disney Plus shows do is we get very little time, in the grand scheme of things, with these characters in the movies to properly flesh them out. So that's
Yeah.
what I love about these shows. We get not only do we get like this unique, quirky reference show that is very different and it is its own thing. At the same time, we're fleshing out and giving a proper backstory and development to this character that didn't have as much screen time as some of the other Avengers or her own solo movie or anything like that.
Yeah.
Vision as
And
well.
it's like,
So
yeah, and you look at it, they changed. Well, up until that point, they changed what Wanda's um, background was.
mhm.
Because at the time, before WandaVision came out, it was always thought of the stone.
Yeah,
The Mind Stone gave her powers.
because that's
But
what
then
that's all they had to do, right? Like this was at a time, Age of Ultron, where um Marvel couldn't touch mutants. They couldn't have any sort of association with what Wanda's character from the comics is. So they had to MCU-ify her character, make sure it fit in this world of super soldiers and Iron Man, and base it around science, but also the Infinity Stones, more Thor's expertise. But
yeah, and I think it was great that the stone was more of a way to to amplify
mhm.
her powers that she already had, as opposed to giving her powers to her.
And Marvel kind of sprinkled in a tease to how they really want to introduce the character. Like they didn't like you could tell like this isn't the character we wanted to introduce, but we couldn't because of Fox.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now we have all that back.
Mhm.
So they had like this history of Marvel book or whatever where they're going through the characters, and in that they mention like, but did the stone really give her powers, or did it unlock something that was in her all this time? And
Yeah.
so they kind of gave that tease in that book, and we saw that in WandaVision. So we kind of see a rewriting of her history in the show, which is good. I like how they handled that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and as that ending, it was a really good ending as well. It's nice to see like Wanda get to go full out and use her magic and do things that she can do. Um, and we know how strong Wanda was
Mm-hmm.
from like Infinity War and Endgame,
Yeah,
but yeah, learning how to use her magic a little bit more, and her new outfit from WandaVision,
yeah,
so good.
so good. Yeah, I love how I've noticed that Marvel wants to. It looks like they're trying to throw in through every series, every single one. They're trying to throw in comics accurate look for the characters, or some sort of like retro look. Whereas before is like before Joss Whedon, I guess, with the Avengers, um, trying to be like more muted tones and trying to make things more modern. Now they're fully embracing the comics look.
Yeah.
Um, which I'm kind of conflicted on, to be honest. Like I understand the comics outfits because they're kind of needed in comics to differentiate the characters, to stand out, and be
Hmm. Hmm.
colorful to sell merchandise and stuff like that. Um, but I wasn't really. I'm like, these outfits look goofy,
Yeah.
and I can't see them realistically in live action. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
MCU happened and Iron Man happened. I'm like, this looks badass. A more modern version of Iron Man and all this other stuff. So I'm like, this is kind of the look I was expecting, and I like it. Now they're going with the comics accurate stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was worried about Hawkeye. I'm like, please don't
Yeah.
give me the Hawkeye costume, and they didn't. And I was like, thank God. But, um, but I will say, like, they found a way to make like most of the comics outfits in these live action series look good, which I wasn't
Yeah,
expecting.
it was actually funny. Funny you mentioned that because I watched a TikTok this morning, and it was like just a series on comic accurate um, costumes in the live action versions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had Captain America in the first one, you know, when he's doing his promo stuff. Then the next show we'll probably talk about is the Sam Wilson
Mm-hmm.
uh, Captain America outfit, which I think looks it looks so good
Yeah.
in the TV show. And then you had like Loki, his comic accurate costume, which was that TV show is brilliant.
Do you think let's move over to Falcon Winter Soldier unless there's anything else you want to add about WandaVision? Um,
No,
the Falcon Winter Soldier costume. I don't know if that's gonna stick around because they did mention. I watched the behind the scenes thing about it. They did mention they had to use a lot of CG to get the
hmm
costume looking good because just the fabric, the material and everything they use, it wasn't like skin tight to his face. So it was kind of like
yeah,
loose and like hanging around. So they had to like digitally,
yeah,
you know, add onto his face. And that was one episode. And
yeah,
they got a movie coming out with Captain America. So I don't know how they're going to want to maintain that for a whole movie.
yeah. Well, you know, I think it's one of those things where it depends how much time passes between the show and the movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, maybe he's like a year into being Captain America. And, you know, I think one of the things the MCU does really well is that when outfits change, there's usually um, like an in universe reason for it. Like, especially around the Iron Man suits,
Yeah.
there's always changes because of a weakness they've identified or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, my favorite outfit is probably for Sam Wilson is probably just the standard flight suit from like the Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah, and that was the like the modern version of it. Like his look in the comics, his original like Falcon look is like a
Yeah.
V-neck white shirt with red wings and um obviously they didn't go that route, but they made his Captain America comics accurate look in the show,
Mm.
which looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of the show, I love the banter between Sam Wilson and Bucky. The
Yeah.
the banter is so good,
It was
especially in that clip, in that section where they're talking about Sam talks about the big three,
yeah.
and it's like aliens, wizards,
Yeah, and
and I can't remember
androids.
the third one. Yeah, and androids. And then they're talking about how Bucky read The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read The Hobbit in 1937 when it came out, which is also an interesting fact that I saw was that that version
hmm
of The Hobbit that Bucky would have read is completely different to the version that's out now because the
Yeah,
way
but
Tolkien
also I
wrote
guess it was
wrote it.
I guess it was inaccurate too because his I was reading a breakdown of it. The Hobbit wouldn't have come out in America. Um wait, what was it? There was some like inconsistency where like he wouldn't have actually read The Hobbit unless he got like some advanced version of it or something like that. I might be wrong on that. I don't know. I remember hearing that somewhere.
Yeah, and also I'm not real great with history, so I don't know. I don't even know. Like, was World War Two not in 1937? Like, could there have been like military reason why Bucky was in like a different country that had the Hobbit or something? Um, but no, and it's like I think those two characters work really well with each other. Um, but I think overall, the Falcon and Winter Soldier was, you know, a pretty good show. Um, I wasn't a big fan of. I like that Sharon Carter was in the show, and I like the role she played.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like the reveal
Oh, the
of
power
her
broker.
being, yeah, the power broker, because there's not a lot of foreshadowing
Yeah.
to
There's
it happening.
there's a lot of leeway I give that show.
Mm.
Because ultimately, I think the show is great, and I like the themes of the show. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
whether it's mental health or whether it's you know, um, the issue of race in America and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I I give it leeway because there's a whole plot point that had to be abandoned on the show with regards to a virus that was
Oh, really?
being spread. Yeah. So they had to work around and cut a lot of that show. I think that's why it came out after WandaVision. Um
Uh,
because they were working on it. They were in the middle of working on it, middle of filming it when the pandemic started. So they had to
mm.
change a lot. So I think a lot of the like extra scenes we would have seen with Sharon Carter, with the enemies. I can't remember their names now. The ones with the face paint, the
Yeah,
super
with the
soldiers.
freedom something or other.
Yeah. There's like a major character which was supposed to have screen time, but then she ended up just being dead on like a like they had a funeral with her and everything.
Yeah.
There was a lot that was changed in the show, so I give it a lot of leeway for that,
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah.
and why
Yeah. I didn't
things
know
don't
about the
feel right.
whole. Yeah, I didn't know. I know. Didn't know about the whole cut
Hmm.
storyline with the virus and that. But it does. That explains why it does feel a bit disjointed at
Yeah.
times.
Hmm. I
And
remember
yeah,
there's
that
like
was.
there's one scene where again the main villain, I can't remember her name. She's like sitting down somewhere, and then in the next shot she's like walking up to somebody,
Hmm.
and it feels out of place, and like it was cut too quickly,
Yeah.
like there's something
Yeah.
removed. So yeah, there was
Yeah.
a lot that was changed, and I think there's a lot of ADR added too, where just lines were changed. um
Hmm.
so yeah, it's definitely it does feel like a show that's very disjointed, like you said.
Yeah, and it's obviously just a product of you know of the pandemic of it trying we're trying to get this movie out, TV show out.
Hmm.
It's still a good show. I still thoroughly enjoyed watching it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, definitely feels disjointed for those reasons.
What do you there was an important thing I was just going to ask you about in the show. um
Hmm.
well, first of all, we got let's talk about the crossover that we were going to talk about. Valentina, whatever her name is.
Yeah,
Uh,
Valentina.
yeah. um I Do you have like any theories on what her role is, what she's trying to do?
Yeah, see, I don't know. So my theory um, was going to be sort of a version of the Dark Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
In the comics where Norman Osborn, you know, becomes the security or president or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and he has like the Dark Avengers, um, which um, kind of made sense,
Yeah.
especially with the Black Widow post-credit scene with Valentina and Yelena, but then kind of got snuffed out with Hawkeye
Yeah.
because yeah, that's where I thought they were going is a Dark Avengers storyline because the Avengers are disbanded, right? And they already tried to replace Captain America. Um, but at the moment, I to be honest, I don't know if we will see much more of her character.
I think they're setting her up for a reason, but I don't know in the immediate future because we have Doctor
Mm,
Strange and Thor coming out. I don't know when we're gonna
mm.
see that character again.
Like street level, yeah.
Yeah, maybe in She-Hulk. I don't know. Maybe She-Hulk. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I feel the same way. It's some sort of iteration of that. She's playing the role of Norman Osborn or similar character, where it's either the Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts. She's assembling
Hmm.
something. She's trying to gather some sort of crew, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think we'll see anything till maybe there'll be something in Secret Invasion. Who
oh
knows?
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we'll probably see her in Secret Invasion.
Yeah, because I have no doubt in my mind at all that Valentina and Nick Fury have crossed paths some way or
Hmm.
another.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I feel like she's sort of playing the role of Victoria Hand a little bit too, which is a um she was in I think she was like post Civil War character
mhm.
where her character was in Agents of Shield. So I don't know how they want to handle Agents of Shield yet.
Uh,
So
I'm actually I started rewatching um, Agents of Shield. I just finished the Ghost Rider arc.
yeah, she would
So
have been introduced before then, I think.
yeah, I'm just trying to think. If what was her
She had
character in the
the
show?
she had like the red streak in her hair. She was dating Phil Coulson, I think. Or they were about to start dating and then I think she died.
Oh yeah, then she was assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know who you're talking about now.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh
yeah. No, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
uh my brother's texting me because he wants to watch The Punisher right now. I'm going through the Netflix shows with him. Um what do
Yeah,
we
I just
think?
finished Punisher season 2 a couple months ago.
Yeah, we're going to be starting season 1 because we just finished Defenders.
Yeah,
So
Defenders. I think Defenders is underrated.
yeah, I don't think it was the best, but yeah, we did enjoy watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Um.
need to get rid of Iron Fist.
uh, Falcon Winter Soldier. What did you think about the um? What's his name? Something Walker. I can't remember his name.
John Walker.
John Walker. Yeah.
I Yeah, to be honest, I don't think at the start of the show
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really into it, but I think towards the end of the show I started, or not so much like, but feel okay with his character.
Uh,
Um, I think he has some really interesting development throughout the show, as
yeah.
disjointed as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do look forward to seeing what they do with his character.
I enjoyed watching the internet freak out over him, just a random guy they've never seen before, just being Captain America, and everybody just wanting to hate him just because of that reason. uh,
Uh, but when you mention that, it does remind me of the best piece of information we did get from that Falcon and Winter Soldier is that Captain America lives on the moon now.
yes, he lives on the moon. Yeah,
I think that was the best part of the show.
I think he did a good job with that character.
Mm.
I didn't hate him as much as everybody else did, but I think yeah the progression of his story was definitely interesting. I do want to see more of him in the future, which sounds like we will.
I
Um,
can't remember, but there was a scene where he had the opportunity to take the super soldier serum.
mhm.
Did he end up taking it
He did,
or
yeah,
not?
yeah, he did.
Yep. Yep. I haven't watched the show since it first came out, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah, he did end up taking it and messed with him, like his mind and everything, and he ended up killing somebody and
Oh
like
yeah, that's
having
right.
a
Yep.
breakdown and um. But yeah, and what about I'm just interested what you think about the main villain, or not the villain, but like the girl, the resistance leader.
I think they were called Flag Smashers or
Flag
something.
smashers,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
was forgettable.
Forgettable, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
it like
I
it
felt the
gave
same way.
it. They were more of a, I guess, a vehicle to bring in John Walker's character,
Yeah.
um, to hunt down like super soldiers and that.
Again, I feel like they would have had a much more interesting uh thread if it wasn't for the pandemic, because
Yeah,
I feel like the way that they were presented on screen versus what they would have originally been written as was very much, like you said, forgettable, and I think that's just an unfortunate side effect of that.
yeah, and like at the end of the day, you know, it didn't feel like they were working up to anything big. Whereas if they had kept that original storyline, like you mentioned before,
Yeah,
with the virus and that, um, it would have been. But the concept of people being displaced
that's what I was gonna ask you. Like,
from,
do you remember what
yeah,
their actual story was? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of people might have looked over or just forgot about.
yeah. So if I'm remembering correctly,
Hmm.
they were, when Thanos snapped half the universe away. Their group was one of the ones who stayed. Were like part of the people that stayed.
Yeah,
But when everyone else came back, they were forced out of the life that they had.
yeah.
Um, and I think that is a really good, like the thing about the Falcon and Winter Soldier is it's really down to earth.
Yeah.
It talks about people being displayed by the blip, as they call it,
That people
and also the
forgot about
fact,
by their government.
yeah, and the
Yeah,
fact that Sam Wilson can't get a loan because he has no income.
yeah. Hmm.
Like it deals with a lot of down to earth issues and really makes you think. Well, that's a good point. Like, does Sam have any money? Like, do the Avengers get paid,
Yeah,
or was everything just provided
yeah.
by Tony?
I think the idea of this flag smashers is an interesting concept.
Yeah,
Um, and
and I kind of hope they keep Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of that down to earth, street level type of show. Obviously, sometimes you might throw in androids or wizards, um, but I think it does really well at that street level, down to earth type of grittiness.
well, we got a movie coming out, or in
Mm.
the works, with
Yeah.
Sam Wilson as Captain America, from the same
Hmm.
writer as the show,
Hmm.
and hopefully nothing he writes in the show is going to have some sort of real world event that has controversy with it this time around, so he can actually write what he needs to write. Um, but
Do you think he's written the script already, but they're just giving it a couple of years just to see if anything happens?
I don't know, maybe.
Like, did he write about Russia and Ukraine in the script for the movie?
Maybe. I mean, maybe they wanted to tie in the character from Black Widow fighting Sam Wilson as Captain America.
Uh, yeah, that brings up an interesting point too with the Black Widow movie as well. So,
Well, before we transition there, there was one other character, which was Zemo, that was in Falcon and Winter
hmm.
Soldier,
Hmm.
which I thought was fantastic.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but in terms of the Flag Smashers, it's interesting because there's and I think this sort of changed because of the pandemic too. They're setting them up to be some sort of threat down the road. Like the cop is like one world, one people when he was
Mm.
like putting him in the car. So it's like, oh shit, they're gonna come back at some point, and then immediately that car gets blown up by Zemo's butler.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're like, we can't, like, we had some sort of significance for them that had something to do with a virus or whatever, and it's best to
Mm.
just write them off at this point. We can't use them anymore, and they just blew him up with the Zemo's butler. That's what I feel
I
like. That's how it felt, because it felt so weird to set them up just to have them blown up. You know?
I also I feel like it gives the opportunity to use them or not. Like if they don't end up using them, they had an ending.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but if they still want to use that concept of the flag smashers, um, there's still got a opportunity, an avenue to go through.
So do you think we
You
could
know,
see them in the Captain America movie?
I think
Because I don't
so.
think so.
If we take I think it was the start of Age of Ultron where they were eliminating the last of the Hydra
Okay.
bases and that. I think if we take that concept and the start of Captain America 4 is sort of putting out the little groups that are splintered off from that original group, I think that's probably the most we'll see in the Captain America movie.
Okay.
I think the Captain America movie will probably be around the Sharon Carter power broker thread personally.
Oh, I think that storyline is not going to have anything to do with Captain America. I think
Hmm. Hmm.
I have a feeling they're setting her up to be in Armor Wars, which is the show with um
Rhodey.
Rhodey,
Mm.
War Machine.
And I think the concept is that a bunch of Iron Man tech and suits get stolen, isn't it?
Yeah, and now she has access to those resources from the government, as she said
Yeah,
in
that
her
makes.
phone call when she was leaving the that courthouse or whatever.
Oh yeah, that makes. Yeah, actually, that makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
but I feel like we could see her in Secret Invasion first, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, but sometimes who can tell? Who knows? And like, it's especially depends on when Secret Invasion takes place as well.
Yeah, I feel like Marvel. I don't know if Marvel's gonna. I mean, it depends on the character and the story they want to tell. But I have a feeling they're not going with their current movies. They're not going back in time or future or anything. They're setting it in the present timeline. They're going to back to that thing, because I wondered the same thing with Shang-Chi, with the Eternals, with Moon Knight, and they place it in those timelines. They have the Disney Plus timeline. It's like, no, everything's going in line. It's set in modern times. So even though like a lot of those could be put in any sort of moment in the or in a few different moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're just going forward now. So I don't think
Yeah, because I think Eternals was the big one, where it didn't make references to a lot of the events that had happened.
aside from Steve Rogers no longer being Captain America.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was the only reference to the outside world it made.
Yeah.
So, um,
And Thanos, you know.
did they
They
did
did
they talk
mention
about
Thanos.
Thanos?
Yeah,
I thought
the
I
the
know it was in the
character's name.
trailer.
Yeah, the character at the beginning of the movie, actually, he asks like,
Oh right,
why didn't you stop Thanos or any of the other big events that happened
yeah.
in the world? Um,
Um,
where do you want to go? Do you want to talk about the movies? You want to stick with Disney Plus shows?
um, I think the next one,
Because I don't know if I have
because
time to go through all of them.
yeah,
That's the thing.
I'm just looking at the. I
Yeah,
just looked at the time for the first time since we started recording,
yeah,
and yeah, we've been at it for a while.
we've been at it.
Um, I think we're in a pretty good spot. I
I
do want to talk about Loki.
Yeah, no, let's go through the Disney Plus shows. Let's just go through them. We'll talk
Yeah,
about. We'll reminisce on the movies after.
yeah. Um, we'll save the movies for another time.
I mean, we have talked
uh,
as a podcast. We have talked about Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and Spider-Man
mm,
quite a bit. So it
mm.
just leaves out Black Widow. So I mean, yeah, we can go back to these at some point.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out that I like them all. I didn't find, I like them all.
Yeah.
I know Eternals got a bit of a bad rap, but I had a lot of fun because I actually went to a friend of mine. Her dad owns a cinema, so we got to go watch the Eternals by ourselves in a private
I
theater.
am so jealous because I had the worst movie experience for the Eternals, and it was awful. I'm so jealous of you.
And it was really cool because my friend obviously worked at the cinema too.
Yeah.
So I got the full behind the scenes, like, this is how we set the projectors up. And I also learnt that they pick what trailers
hmm
they're shown before a movie.
do they have
So
like a certain, like, you have to show this certain trailer this many of times or in this number of movies or whatever, or
um, they they didn't say,
Mhm.
but like before we watched the movie, we're at the computer picking what trailers
Mhm.
we wanted to watch.
That's cool.
Um, yeah,
That
it's
makes sense
and
why
look,
we saw like Venom, or I think we saw Venom Let There Be Carnage as a trailer.
yeah, I think we watched Venom,
Oh yeah, Spider-Man was a
um,
trailer. Yeah.
Spider Man, and I think Encanto.
Oh yeah, I didn't get a
Was it?
trailer for that.
Yeah, I think it was Encanto or another children's movie that was coming out around that time. Because I don't think Encanto had a theater release.
I don't know. I remember it just showed up one day and everybody was talking about it.
It's really good. I enjoyed it. Um, but yeah, so I guess for Loki, did you like Loki? I loved it.
I loved Loki. I didn't really have high expectations for Loki. Loki's a
Mm,
character which I like. I'm not like obsessed with Loki, or I have like a big fondness of the character. And the they said they were doing a Loki show, and I'm like, all right, whatever. And then I saw the first trailer. I'm like, I don't know what this show is. It's so
mm,
weird, and I didn't know what to think about it because it was just so
mm.
it was so like it was just nonsense. Um, but I watched and then I think there was a few other trailers after that got me a little bit hyped. When I saw the first episode, and first of all, the fact that it's dealing with time travel has me in. I don't care. Um, so once you involve time travel, I'm like, all right, you have my attention. Um, but I watched the first episode. I'm like, this is exactly the show I want to watch right now. This is
Mm,
this
mm.
is this is exactly what I need. It was yeah, it was such a weird concept, and the style of the show, and the characters and all that stuff. I really loved it. I loved Mobius. I loved the TVA, the whole
Mm.
concept behind everything. It was so good. I love the show.
I think one of the things I loved is that it completely removed Infinity Stones from
hmm
a source of power immediately in the show.
hmm
They're like, oh, these are desk weights, you know? And which I thought was really cool because it was, they had to find a way of moving beyond Infinity Stones. So,
yeah.
yeah, I loved it. I loved Alligator Loki. Um, it's an alligator, not a crocodile.
yeah.
So, and then we also saw Frog Thor,
Me and you
which
had
is
a debate about that.
yes, yes. um, and then yeah, I loved the I can't remember the actor's name, Richard E. Grant or something,
hmm
who played like the original Loki, I
Yeah.
guess, and just like his scene with summoning that massive illusion of Asgard, that
Yeah.
was that was unreal. Um, I thought it was a bit weird the love interest between Sylvie and
where
Loki.
he's in love with himself. I don't think that's really that weird.
I, it's the adage, like, if you had a
Yeah,
clone of yourself, would
yeah.
you fuck yourself?
I understand. No, I think for that character, uh, I don't know. I think that makes sense. I feel like the only person who could love him
Love Loki
is
Loki.
Loki. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
no, it makes sense. It was just a bit different. It was very different.
Yeah. I love
Um,
Sylvie as a character. I love
yes.
the
Yep.
adaptation of how they chose to adapt that character too, because it's sort of an
Yep.
amalgam of two different characters in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just played well for the MCU and how they established that character. Um, I like I like that we're getting a season 2
Yes, it's
because
one of the only two Disney Plus shows that are getting a season 2 so far.
so far, yeah. And I
Mm.
think this
The
show
other
makes
being What If?
sense. Yeah, What If is the other
Mm.
one. I feel like let's skip What If because we talked
Yeah.
we talked a lot about What If at the beginning of the podcast. We'll circle back to it at some point. Before
Mm.
season 2, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
But for Loki, when you involve time travel and different timelines and multiverse and stuff like that, my mind goes all over the place. And that show introduced a lot of concepts where, in addition to Endgame, how time travel works in the MCU and how the multiverse works and everything. There's a lot of stuff where I'm like, that makes sense, but you're giving multiple explanations for the same thing where it's now confusing. And I feel like a season 2, which I don't think the same person who did season 1 is working on season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know how they set up season 2, but I don't know how they're actually going to handle season 2
Yeah.
yet. So
It. Yeah. Season 2 will be very interesting, especially again. The big thing with with the MCU is the timeline of when things happen.
yeah, and
So
it's such a weird thing to talk about with Loki because there isn't a when exactly for
mm,
Loki. The TVA, they establish it as existing outside of time. But
yes,
the problem I have with that is that there is clearly a timeline that exists within the TVA. There's a certain
yes,
point in time where they leave, come back, and you know, um, and by when we get to the end of the series, you see that, like, events change and everything. Um,
yep,
but and Loki kind of has that comment at the beginning of the show where they go back to test out his theory of where Sylvie could be hiding.
mm.
Um, where he's creating a mess and he's like, "We're from the future," and he's like, "Are we from the future? We seem kind of like a future thing," and it's like, no, they're supposed to exist outside of time, but also maybe they're in the future, and also there's a point at the end of time where they send stuff, so it's like obviously there's some miscommunication, there's some lying involved, because that's not, I don't think that's exactly what the case is for the TVA. But if that's true, then why don't the Infinity Stones work? Why like that? I have a lot of questions. They also
Yeah,
explain time, like, just one more thing. They also explain time in multiple different ways. They say it's, it's a line, it's a thread that could be weaved outwards, but also
mm.
it's a circle and everything is happening all at once. And they just explain, like, multiple things. It's like, okay, so is it this or is it this? And is it both? If it
Mm.
is both, how does both work? So I feel like I need that season 2 to more solidify the world and how everything works exactly.
I do like the visual at the end of the series when because you see the timeline
Yeah,
throughout the show,
yeah,
but when it starts to branch out,
yeah,
I think that's a really cool visual. And I'm pretty sure, like, again, there's a lot of stuff that lines up with like that moment in Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like 27 minutes into an episode, and there's a couple of other TV shows on Disney Plus where something a major plot point happens at the exact same time or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is an interesting concept. But no, I like it's my main question is because you've got He Who Remains at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and Jonathan Majors, majorly an underrated actor.
Did a really
Loved him
good
in
job with this
yeah,
role.
like I loved him in Lovecraft Country, which unfortunately got cancelled after one season, but it was great. It should have more seasons. Um, but so he's He Who Remains, who's a variant of Kang the Conqueror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, and when Loki ends, the timeline's changed,
Yes.
so the TVA sort of exists in time because the timeline's changed.
Yeah, because the
But
TVA changed, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Loki remembers the change.
Yeah.
Um, and then you've got a Kang the Conqueror statue in the
Mm-hmm.
TVA.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Now, the question is that the same Kang the Conqueror that's going to be in Ant-Man?
don't know.
Yeah, it's like is season 2 going to deal with the events of Ant-Man or vice versa? I don't even know when Ant-Man's supposed to be coming out.
Next year, I think.
Mm. So I think out of everything that's coming out of Disney Plus, I think Loki's giving us the most potential
Yeah, it
for
definitely
things to
has the
happen.
most effect of the movies, I think. Where we'll see that directly connected to Loki or not is like I don't know if that's the case. I think the effects of Loki will spill over to movies, but I don't know if they're gonna be like Loki's in this movie now and here's Sylvie and they're gonna explain everything. I don't know if that's the case. Because it kind of feels like the Marvel TV shows before Disney Plus, where it's like they're
Yeah,
referencing the movies, but the movies aren't referencing them. So
yeah,
it kind of feels like that. But they're definitely tied to each other. Um, and I think there's different ways that you can look at what happened at the ending of Loki. Uh, like just for an example, Sylvie grabbed He Who Remains portal off of his desk,
mm,
his time pad. So did his time pad go to a specific timeline of a
mm-hmm,
different TVA? Does the
mm-hmm,
original TVA still exist? So did going
mm-hmm.
back in or did the multiverse thing actually change that TVA's timeline, or is this a different TVA? Um, there's I think Loki remembering everything is fine. You don't change your past as
I
established
think
in the end game. So
I think well, so Mobius doesn't remember Loki.
hmm
So I think the I don't know. I think they called it like the edge of time, where He Who Remains was like the end of time, or wherever that house was.
hmm
Um, I think if you were there, you remember the stuff
but
that
yeah,
happened.
I don't think like when the Avengers time travel to the past,
Mm,
they don't forget everything, right?
mm,
So Loki's in a different Loki's in a different time.
yeah,
Whether I don't know how the TVA is affected by time and everything. We'll see in season 2. But
hopefully,
this is obviously a
hopefully.
different this is obviously a different TVA. To me, this is an obviously different TVA, a different Mobius. Um
Hmm.
it's not the same. It's not like they had a case of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man No Way Home where they just forget like the things actually happen but they forget it. I think this is a different place that he got sent to. Um
Hmm.
so he's outside of their world. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say about the TVA, which is of an organization of variants, but um, just like I don't think your memory gets reset. I think they're just different people. Uh, we
Yeah.
also saw the one guy who was behind the counter, um, the guy who didn't know what fish was. Um, he's now an agent or whatever of the TVA. He was like leading a squad somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's just like it's a different TVA, or that TVA has changed, or they're different variants of those characters. Um, but again, we don't have all the answers yet. We have to wait for
Yeah.
season 2.
Do you think um we'll get Loki in Thor: Love and Thunder?
No.
Do you think we'll see them on screen again anytime?
Um, maybe. I don't know if it'll be a Thor movie.
Mm.
It if anything, it would have. We'll see what happens after Ant-Man,
Mm.
because whatever happens in Ant-Man is gonna give us an idea of what's gonna happen with Kang.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
because it could be a situation where Kang is involved in some other crossover movie, and then we see Thor and Loki interact.
Yeah, and like, well, if we use the comics as an example, um, Aang basically is involved with everything at one point, right? He was, an ancient Egyptian pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was Iron Lad, I believe. Um,
Yeah.
he was involved with Fantastic Four at some point.
And I
Um,
don't think any of that matters for the MCU.
yeah.
I think just like Thanos, Thanos is trying to court death, and there's this
Mm.
whole other side of Thanos that didn't see in the movies. I think Kang's sort of the same situation, where time is set up differently in the MCU, and the MCU is pretty you know solid and thought out on how
Mm-hmm.
everything works. In the
Mm-hmm.
comics, time is inconsistent in terms of
Mm.
how they describe it in the comics. There's it works one way, but then it works a different way in a different comic, and there's also a million different futures. We've seen
Yeah.
mutants get eradicated. We've seen Spider-Man 2099. We've seen a whole bunch of different versions of the future. Um, in the MCU, they have it established. You can't change your past. It's you're creating a new
Future.
future. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know if we will have. And another director, the writer of Loki said, "Okay, this is the rules that we have explained in Endgame, based on how those characters perceive time.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it isn't that way at all, and we will see Kang jumping through time and changing things and all that. But I think they established this rule, and they had a meeting, like all the higher ups at Marvel. How's in Marvel Studios? How does the multiverse work? How does time travel work? We need to have a definitive
Mm-hmm.
answer going forward. Um, so I don't think they're gonna show Kang in all those rules, like messing around in the main MCU timeline. I think he's
Mm-hmm.
creating multiple timelines. Maybe there is a point where
Mm-hmm.
he traveled back in time and became a pharaoh, but that wasn't in the MCU. That was
Mm-hmm.
he changed another timeline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, the two biggest releases that'll have great impact on the MCU are like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange.
Agreed. I agree
Mm.
100%. And I think those are honestly, from what I feel is going to happen, not in the immediate future, way in the future. Like I have a feeling what the immediate plans are. and I have a feeling of what the end game is for
Hmm.
this series of projects for Marvel. Um, and I feel like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man are the small first stepping stones of where everything is going to lead. So where everything seems crazy now, and it's going to get even crazier. Um, I will say, asking like where are we going to see these characters show up? Are we going to see variants of characters in other movies? We're gonna save Hawkeye for another time. By the way,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have time for it.
Well, we spoke about it a little bit already, so.
Yeah. Um. Jordan and I had a pretty long discussion on Hawkeye. The title of the podcast was Hawkeye: The Perfect Christmas Show. I think so. Go watch that podcast. It was a couple podcasts ago. Um, but I I I I saw like some thumbnails and stuff like that. Like, is there's some other upcoming movie? What's coming up soon? I think for like Miss Marvel and stuff like that. Like, is this person a variant, or
Mm.
um, or in Moon Knight, is this person a variant? I'm like, listen, I know the multiverse is the biggest thing right now. And I'm glad that it is. It's great. It opens up a lot of doors and opportunities for a lot of cool storylines.
Mm.
And there's the obvious movies: Spider-Man: No Way Home, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. They're in the title. Those are the obvious movies where we're definitely going to get those mentions of the multiverse and the impact and everything. But when you're asking, does every single show and movie involve variants and
Mm.
multiverse and time travel? I feel like that dilutes the whole thing, and I don't know if I want that. Like,
I don't think everything has to connect to everything
yeah,
within the MCU. Like at the moment, when it comes to MCU standards, Moon Knight is encapsulated pretty well to its own self,
yeah,
and I think that's great. You know, we don't need to worry about Moon Knight variants and jumping between multiverses, and also just adding the multiverse and variants to every single thing complicates things as well.
yeah, for sure, 100%. And and the most important thing is it's not needed. And Moon Knight's the
Mm.
example. Like, Moon Knight doesn't need the MCU.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any references to the MCU at all in Moon Knight. Like,
I
have you
think I
seen
think
anything?
I think I think there was something an advertisement on a bus.
Yeah, the
Uh,
GRC, the for from
yes,
Falcon Winter Soldier. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But again, pretty minor reference. And that's the one I can think of. There's probably been some others, but
yeah.
that's the only one I can think of.
So
Um,
so what I want to say is just going, and I I I can't imagine Feige and Marvel Studios saying we need to inject the multiverse into every single thing we do from now on. Um,
mm,
so I just want to say for everybody, watching the stuff coming up, whether it's, aside from the obvious ones, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, um, Thor: Love and Thunder. Uh, I think Thor was the one that people were asking if it was a variant of Jane Foster. And I'm like, you don't need a variant of Jane Foster. You have Jane Foster. Just use Jane
mm,
Foster.
mm.
Um, Anything coming up, just don't set that expectations. Don't look at like new rock stars YouTube thumbnails and say like, oh my god, there's variants
Mephisto.
the Mephistos everywhere. Um, I it just things can be standalone, so don't expect you know Tom Cruise or whoever as Iron Man in every movie. Don't expect Loki to pop up in every movie. I think Marvel's got a plan. They're threading it, and I think the multiverse as a concept is going to be self-contained. I don't think it's going to be an ever-present thing in the MCU. At some point, they're going to have it come to a close.
Yeah.
And
I feel like the MCU is going to have, I guess, different genres within itself. So you'll have TV shows and movies that deal with the multiverse. You'll have TV shows and movies that deal with the supernatural side of Marvel.
I'm
And then
excited for
also
that.
the street level stuff of Marvel as well. I think that's how it'll work. I don't think there's been no I guess no idea of a big team up movie again, like the Avengers. I know
There will be.
there was some Marvel article who said, there's not going to be another Avengers movie,
It's bullshit.
which makes perfect sense. It makes sense because they might not be called the Avengers.
It's going to be a different team. They might not be called the Avengers. They might be called some derivative of the Avengers, but there will be a team up movie guaranteed.
And so I think that's how it'll go. We'll have different, 3 or 4 different TV shows and movies dealing with those genres. And I think it's really good because it gives something, a little bit of everything for something for everyone. So
yeah, I just don't want my movie going experience and series watching to be diluted about the multiverse in every single chance they can. I'm enjoying Moon Knight for what it is. It doesn't need a multiverse crossover. So and I think Marvel realizes that. So don't expect it. We got the big ones. Those are the only ones you need to worry about. We got Doctor Strange,
exactly.
Ant-Man, and what was the other one? Oh, we already had Spider-Man. The Doctor Strange and Ant-Man. Nothing else that's been announced so far. I don't think we will see anything else involving that concept until we know what's going to happen with Kang at the end of Ant-Man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even assuming that Ant-Man has anything to do with the multiverse. Because I think it's more to do with the quantum realm.
Which I think is going to be involved with the multiverse.
Yeah. I mean, it's 90%, 99% likely that it is. But yeah, I think after Ant-Man, I think we'll know where we are with the multiverse.
Yeah, and Loki season 2.
Yeah. Whenever that happens.
Or maybe even What If. Maybe they'll give us some answers in What If. Never know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who knows?
That's it. We went way longer than I was. Oh my god, we went way longer than I was expecting. So this might be the longest podcast we've had, which I was expecting it to be the shortest. But I think that is, I think that makes up for Matt being away for so long. We got some good chunk of time with Matt here, and hopefully we'll have him in the future podcasts. I'm sure we'll be doing another one after Moon Knight's done. We didn't even really talk about Moon Knight and like what that last episode means and everything. So I felt like that was going to be our biggest discussion today.
Yeah. And also, we got Multiverse of Madness in like a week and a half,
which I'm not going to be seeing in theaters, so I won't have much to say on that. So I don't. If Jordan sees it in theaters, I'll have you guys talk about it, and then I will try to edit around the video without being spoiled.
Good luck with that one. That'll be a challenge.
Yeah, and I think after that we're gonna have Miss Marvel premiering. So, no shortage of Marvel content coming up. So we're gonna be back talking about more stuff. Hopefully it won't be 3 hours long. Anyways, thanks for sticking around for so long. And
no worries. I had nothing else planned today, so
Matt, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Pending Things. Those are the two I use. So,
and I am at Tillplays everywhere. This is a Marvel MCU podcast for Spawn Trap. Check us out on YouTube. For our main gaming podcast, we are available on all podcast services. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.